Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Black Brain Trust. Today is September 19th, Wednesday, September 19th. Today is our geopolitical show. We're going to be speaking about a few good things today. A few good things on the topic. I'm pretty sure you all enjoy it. My name is Lionel with my co-host Mike V. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. And yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Nice sunny weather down here. Nice sunny weather.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
let's get into our first topic of the night. This first topic comes from Bloomberg.com, written by Zainab Fattah, September 9th. Title: U.S. Navy conducts military exercises in Gulf amid Iran tension. All right. Article: The U.S. Navy is conducting exercises this month to ensure its readiness to guarantee freedom of movement through Persian Gulf and Red Sea waterways amid escalating threats from Iran to disrupt shipping across important choke points. The exercises with regional and global allies are part of the U.S. Fifth Fleet Theater Counter Mine and Maritime Security Exercise, Commander Scott A. Sterney told reporters from exercises taking place in Djibouti, which sits on one side of the Bab al Mandab Strait, a crucial pinch point for global shipping at the south end of the Red Sea. The combined exercises illustrate that the U.S. and our partners stand ready to ensure the freedom of navigation and free flow of commerce wherever international law allows, Sterney said. Although the exercises aren't in response to Iran's threats, Sterney said U.S. allies need to be well positioned to address anything that threatens our interests or our ships. He said Iran's activities across the region are promoting instability that's affecting the region significantly through its backing of Yemen's Houthi rebels. Iran has threatened to halt export through the Straits of Hormuz, a vital channel for Middle East oil, of its barred and ship of its barred from shipping its crude through it. The threat started after the U.S. withdrawal from 2015 nuclear agreement and reimposed economic sanctions on Iran that had been erased. Not erased, I apologize, people. Read that sentence again. The threat started after the U.S. withdrew from a 2015 nuclear agreement and reimposed economic sanctions on Iran that had been eased under the accord. The measures are set to intensify in November by targeting Iran's oil sales, the lifeline of its economy. All right, title again: U.S. Navy conducts military exercises in Gulf amid Iran tension. Now, as you talk about this, Mike, I'm going to bring up the map so people can see what we're speaking about to get a visual of what I just read.
Well,
Uh,
for people who are not privy on what's been going on, basically Iran controls the Straits of Hormuz, um, based on their geo geographical proximity. If you're looking at the map that Lionel has pulled up,
right,
um,
right
their
here,
shipping routes.
Straits of Hormuz.
Choke
This
point.
little, huh?
It's a choke point.
Right, this little, yeah, choke point right here. You have Iran on this side, which would be the eastern side of it, and UAE, United Arab Emirates, on the say southwestern side of the choke point.
Right. And in this regard, what you see with Iran is basically that they can actually shut this down militarily if they had to. It's not in the U.S. best interest to play with Iran if that choke point can actually be held captive by the Iranian Navy as well as their Air Force as well, because their Air Force has um, underwater submarine warfare tactics that can actually take out anything coming through that strait, because it'd be obvious that if there is a submarine coming through there, if it's U.S. or NATO-based submarine, they could sink it before it even gets into the Persian Gulf itself.
Mm-hmm. Now, then the article also said that this is a vital choke point for the shipment of oil, and the shipment of oil is, I'm guessing, from Qatar. And also, you have up through the Persian Gulf. You have Kuwait. What's this? There's still Iran, and you have Iraq. I'm guessing they would ship their oil from their country through these straits. And also, you have commerce is coming back through the straits also.
Right, and you also have merchant ships coming out of UAE, because UAE is a merchant class state, so it's a mercantile state. So not only oil will be stopped, but other logistics such as your food supplies and things of that nature that need to be shipped out and need to be imported would actually be halted. Which you can, most supermarkets only have enough supplies for 72 hours for a week.
Mm-hmm.
You shut it down for a week or 2 weeks. That becomes a huge problem.
Right, right. Now, the UAE's ports are in Abu Dhabi, Dubai. Those are the main ports, even though the UAE has sea line coast on the other side of the country, but the main ports are in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Am I wrong about that?
There's multiple seaports around there, so.
Okay. Which means they will have to go. They still have to go through the Straits of Hormuz, which Iran, like you said, Iran can't have the capabilities of shutting down. Now, the other choke point that the article mentioned was the choke point going into the Red Sea, where you have Djibouti on one side and Yemen on the other. And through past geopolitical hangouts shows, we mentioned that there's about 6 countries with military bases there, and the newest one being the Chinese military base, to ensure that their shipping containers, ships go through this strait without any damage or anything stopping it.
Well, most of this has to do with military conflict, right? So a military conflict between Iran and the United States would prove to be disastrous for everybody. Saudi Arabia is not capable of fighting a war on its own, and the UAE wouldn't be able to do it either. So the United States would have to be the security guarantor of the Persian Gulf, so to speak. So,
okay,
if there's going to be a battle, it's going to be between the United States and Iran.
Okay, United States and Iran, because Iran has the military capability to have that the military engagement. Okay.
They're the only ones who could stand up to the United States. The rest of the Gulf states are not capable of standing up to Iran.
Okay.
Not without help from the United States or the United Kingdom or the French. We know the United Kingdom just opened up a military base in Bahrain not too long ago, or maybe about a year or so ago. So we know that the French have been trying to get into the Gulf as well. I think through the UAE. So I think even Israel wants to put, if I recall correctly, there is a secret military base inside Saudi Arabia that is close to the Persian Gulf. So.
Okay. Cool. All right, let's get to our excuse me, our next article. This one comes from CNN.com, titled U.S. threatens sanctions against international criminal courts will close PLO office in Washington. article written by Elise Labat and Hillary Clark on September 11th. Article: U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton announced Monday that the U.S. will use any means necessary to protect its citizens and allies from prosecution by the International Criminal Court. The United States will use any means necessary to protect our citizens and those of our allies from unjust prosecution by this illegitimate court, including tariffs and prosecution, Bolton said in a speech to the Federalist Society in Washington, D.C. Bolton blasted the ICC as ineffective, unaccountable, outright dangerous, and contrary to American principles, and said the U.S. would respond against the ICC and its personnel to the extent permitted by U.S. law. We will ban its financial system and we will prosecute them in the U.S. criminal court. We will do the same for any company or state that assists an ICC investigation of Americans, said Bolton, a former ambassador to the UN. Bolton said the U.S. would take note of other countries' cooperation with the ICC and will remember that cooperation when settling U.S. foreign assistance, military assistance, and intelligence sharing levels. He also said the administration would consider taking steps in the UN Security Council to constrain the Netherlands-based court, whose jurisdiction the U.S. does not recognize. Bolton also hailed the closure of the PLO office in Washington and said the U.S. will not allow the ICC or any other organization to constrain Israel's rights to self-defense. The State Department officially announced the decision to close the office in a statement Monday. We have permitted the PLO office to conduct operations that support the objective of achieving a lasting, comprehensive peace between Israelis and the Palestinians since the expiration of a previous waiver in November 2017. Department spokesperson Heather Nauert said in the statement. However, the PLO has not taken steps to advance the start of direct and meaningful negotiations with Israel. To the contrary, PLO leadership has condemned a U.S. peace plan they have not yet seen and refused to engage with the U.S. government with respect to peace efforts and otherwise, Nauert's statement continued. The statement added that the decision was consistent with the administration's and congressional concern about Palestinian attempts to promote an ICC investigation of Israel. The PLO slammed the U.S. administration in advance of the expected announcement and said it has already been notified by the White House of the decision. This dangerous escalation shows that the U.S. is willing to disband the international system in order to protect Israeli crimes and attacks against the land and people of Palestine, as well as against peace and security in the rest of the region, PLO's Secretary General Saeed Erekat said in a statement. It is also extremely cruel and spiteful to us to persist in deliberately bashing the Palestinian people by denying them of their rights, giving away their land and rightful capital of Jerusalem, and defunding UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency of Palestine Refugees, and Palestinian institutions, including East Jerusalem hospitals. Fellow PLO Executive Committee member Hanan Ashwa said in a statement. The head of the PLO delegation to the U.S. Hassan Zomlot condemned the closure of the mission in the strongest terms in a statement Monday, saying the Trump administration was blindly executing Israel's wish list, which starts with shutting down Palestinian diplomatic representation in the U.S. The administration's reasoning for such an act is a refusal of the Palestinian leadership and the PLO delegation to the U.S. to cooperate with the so-called peace efforts and our actions to hold Israel accountable by referring it to the International Criminal Court, Zomlot said. We stand firm in our decision not to cooperate in this ongoing campaign to liquidate our rights and cause. Our rights are not for sale, and we will block any attempts at bullying and blackmailing us to forego our legitimate and international endorsed rights. In the statement, Zumlaut said the Trump administration aimed to protect Israel from unlawful acts and provide it with full immunity, immunity to kill the two-state solution. The statement also vowed to step up our efforts to hold Israel accountable under international law, continue building international alliances for peace, doubling our efforts to reach out to the American people as we witness the transformational change in American public opinion in support of the Palestinian cause and our legitimate rights. Over the weekend, the U.S. announced it would redirect 25 million originally planned for the East Jerusalem Hospital network as part of its review of U.S. aid to Palestinians. 6 hospitals will be affected, including the Lutheran Ward Federation, or LWF, Augusta Victoria Hospital, or AVH, which serves over 5 million Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. According to the hospital's website, the AVH, or August Victoria Hospital, also provides specialized care not available in the Palestinian territories, including radiation therapy for cancer patients and pediatric hemodialysis, according to the website. In a statement posted online, the LWF said it regretted the U.S. announcement of the hospitals, adding that funding for the facilities was critically important. The funding to the East Jerusalem Hospital Network is critical to ensure ongoing life-saving treatment for patients from the West Bank and Gaza, said Reverend Dr. Martin Lunge, LWF General Secretary. We call on the U.S. administration and the U.S. Congress, in the spirit of the exemption introduced in the Taylor Force Act and the international community, to urgently address the critical situation to ensure that the life saving treatments can continue uninterrupted. The Taylor Force Act is a law passed by Congress earlier this year that linked future U.S. funding to the Palestinian Authority, or the PA, to a demand that the Palestinian Authority end its policy of paying a stipend to terrorists serving in Israeli prisons, as well as to the families of deceased terrorists. Wow. The law's the law's proponents and said the payments were an incentive to commit acts of terror, but the law exempted U.S. funding for East Jerusalem hospitals. Last month, the U.S. also announced it was cutting off funding to the UNRWA, the UN agency that provides schools and healthcare services to more than 5 million Palestinian refugees, leaving the agency with a shortfall of 300 million. The U.S. onslaught against the ICC is the latest challenge from the Trump administration to international institutions. This year alone, it has left the UN Human Rights Council and threatened to pull out of the World Trade Organization. Last year, the U.S. withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. Um, a thought on this, that the Mr. Bolton, he said that they would, any country that is, any country that's supporting this this case, that the U.S. would put financial sanctions on it. And we all know, with the U.S. dollar being a world reserve currency, that the U.S. can act as a bully in putting tariffs on other countries. When he said that, in my opinion, that will push other countries to find an alternative way for financial resources. But my question to you is, A, what is the PLO? And also about this article, what's, for those who are listening, why is this so important?
Well, what the U.S. is doing is they're weaponizing the dollar. So that what they're doing is they're using the dollar to bully anybody who doesn't agree with their political stance. So if you decide to do business with the ICC and funding it in any single way, whether it's through dollars or supplying computers or networks or anything like that, or any sort of logistics, what they're going to do is they're going to use the dollar to actually take you down, while at the same time deflecting from what the real objective is, which is to hold people accountable for human rights violations. Um, now, what the PLO is the Palestinian Liberation Organization that was started after the Nakba, which was 1948, of the extermination and gentrification of the Palestinians, the Arab Palestinians out of the occupied territories of the Jews. The Jews came out of Europe, and they actually expelled a whole bunch of Palestinians that were already there, the Palestinian Arabs, not the Palestinian Jews. So after World War II, the United States and many Russia and many of the superpowers sat down at the table and decided that they were going to go ahead and allot a lot of land that was already being lived upon by Palestinian Arabs to European Jews who we consider to be Zionists. So the Zionists actually took over the land and kicked out a whole bunch of Palestinian Arabs and basically are occupying it to this very day, and have been changing the borders and actually evicting people out of their homes, basically gentrifying the whole entire area and cleansing it out to get rid of the Arabs. So these things are war crimes, and not only are they war crimes, they are actually human rights violations to actually gentrify people out of their resident homes without due process. And the ICC could actually be used as a tool to basically persecute Israel and as well as the United States. The United States actually pulled out of is not a member of the ICC as it is right now. I think they pulled out in 2001, right before 9/11 or after 9/11, if I remember correctly. It was under Bush. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to persuade other people in other nation states from actually taking a case to the ICC, because they could literally take many of these United States police officers to the ICC for crimes against humanity. When you go into when you kill people extrajudicially without due process, then that is a human rights violation, and that could be actually used. The ICC can actually rule against the United States, and that's why you hear Bolton trying to get away, from this whole entire discussion, because they don't want to actually have to bring all of these white men to court for killing black people, and they don't want to have to bring in all of these Zionists to court for actually killing brown Palestinian Arabs in the Middle East. So there's a whole lot riding on this right now, and the momentum is on the side of the people, and not for the United States, because the United States has been pulling out of everything, including the Paris Agreement, which was a foolish gesture by Trump, because now China is holding the ball in terms of the Paris Agreement, and you see other countries wanting to use the ICC as a tool to actually persecute these oppressive powers.
Mm-hmm. Now, I saw over the weekend, I saw something on television, and it was a commercial. You know, where other states will broadcast in other states, hey, this is Wisconsin, it's a beautiful state, come visit it. Michigan, pure Michigan, things like that. I saw the same kind of commercial, but from Israel, and it was saying, come visit Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. I kid you not. I saw that this weekend on TV. So they're broadcasting to Americans.
Yeah, even Google has. If you look at a map on Google Earth, it shows that Jerusalem is now the capital. Jerusalem is now the capital of Israel, even though the rest of the United Nations hasn't agreed upon this.
Yep. Yeah. Let me zoom in a little bit.
It should be Tel Aviv.
Yeah, should be Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Yep. So they're trying to change it in the minds of the people, but yeah.
Well, when you have the weight of the United States behind you, and you have that sort of political power, you can get things done, even if it's not true.
Mm-hmm. Make other people believe it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's go ahead and get to our next article, people. This one comes from, excuse me, RT.com. Title: Merkel reportedly weighing German involvement in Syria. Coalition partner says Nein, which is German for no. Published September 10th. Article: Amid reports that the German Defense Ministry is considering getting involved in the Syrian conflict, SPD leader Andrea Nahles, a coalition partner of Angela Merkel, has completely ruled out supporting any such intervention. While the Syrian government, backed by Russian airstrikes, set to crack down on Islamist rebels in the province of Idlib, Nahles said on Monday that she would not support German intervention even if Bashar Assad's government uses chemical weapons. The SPD will agree neither in the government nor in parliament a participation of Germany in the war in Syria, read a statement from Nahles. The SPD leader said that her party supports Foreign Minister Heiko Maas' ongoing efforts to resolve the conflict through peaceful means, including talks with Turkey and Russia. Nahles' Security Social Democratic Party is currently in a grand coalition with Chancellor Angela Merkel's Christian Democratic Union, or CDU. Her statement comes after Merkel's government revealed on Monday that it has been in talks with its allies regarding possible military intervention in Syria. The U.S. had earlier asked Merkel to join the coalition, reported German newspaper Bild. The German Defense Ministry and the U.S. had reportedly discussed various options for German involvement, ranging from simple reconnaissance flights and damage analysis to a possible engagement in combat missions. If Germany eventually agrees to join the U.S. in attacking Syria, that would mark its first engagement in aggression since the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia in the 1990s. While Germany does assist the U.S. in operations against Islamic State, formerly ISIS, it does not fly combat missions and does not target the Syrian government. Germany was left out of the alliance that struck Syria in April after Assad government allegedly used chemical weapons on the civilian population of Douma, a town about 10 kilometers north of the capital, Damascus. Moscow and Damascus dispute the Western narrative and claim that the attack was staged by jihadist rebels. Intervention now would set Germany up for possible confrontation with Russia, an ally of the Syrian government. Russian jets have been pounding terrorists since the Idlib in an effort to wipe out the country's remaining jihadists. The Russian military, the Russian Ministry of Defense warned on Sunday that terrorist groups, including Jab, Jabhat al-Nusra and the infamous White Helmets, were preparing to stage a chemical attack to give the Western coalition a pretext to strike Assad again. Russia has repeatedly issued the same warning over the past weeks, and the and has submitted that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says are concrete facts about the impeding false flag chemical attacks to the U.S. government, the UN, and the OPCW, Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons. The Russian government claims that chlorine gas canisters have already been put in place in Idlib for the use of for use in the attack. Nevertheless, Western forces are on standby to respond to such assaults. President Trump is in routine dialogue with the Pentagon over his military options in Syria, and France's top military chief has said that French forces are all ready to strike if chemical weapons are used again. The Pentagon, meanwhile, is beefing up its military presence in the area. deploying USS Ross and its Tomahawk missiles in the Mediterranean, and launching an air assault exercise in southern Syria, backed by artillery fire over the weekend. To increase its striking potential, the civilians, armed with 56 cruise missiles, was also sent the Persian Gulf. In addition, B-1B supersonic bombers have been relocated to the U.S. Air Base in Qatar. All right, read the title again, people. Merkel reportedly weighing Germany involved in Syria, coalition partner says 9. There was a sentence in this article that stuck out to me, and it was, I can't find it currently off the top of my head, but it was saying, paraphrasing, that Germany is not going to go into the war with NATO because it would put them in direct conflict with Russia, and Russia is on Bashar Assad's side and the Syrian government's side. I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting tidbit in this article.
Right. They don't really want to get into any conflicts, primarily because they have a relationship with Russia that is based on mutual agreement for energy. So the Nord Stream pipeline goes from Russia into Ukraine and through the northern states and into Germany to supply Germany with energy. They're not going to give that up just to bomb Syria. There's no vested interest inside Syria for for Germany. So what value does it really bring? Now, the only reason they're discussing about going into there because the United States put pressure on them because they're a NATO member. But in reality, NATO is not really buying them any sort of stability because they're not even paying their way into NATO. Trump talked about this when he first got into office and during his campaign that the 2.5% of GDP that has to be paid for their way into NATO is actually being subsidized by the United States, and that European countries, if they want security, need to pay up. So we're actually subsidizing Germany to get in, to be inside NATO, but at the same time, if you don't pay your own way, then it's going to be expected that you go do what the United States tells you to do. So if now they're thinking it over, they're probably thinking over, how can we get involved without actually getting involved?
Mm-hmm. Now, my question to you is this. I thought Germany is one of the leading economies in Europe. Why would America be subsidizing their NATO fees?
Because most of the European countries don't really. The whole purpose of NATO is to keep European countries from fighting each other and actually fight Russia. But when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, that was no longer the case. So who was there? What purpose does NATO really serve? But if if it's keeping Europe together, then the United States is willing to pay their way. But now that Trump comes in and he analyzes that, the Germans aren't paying their way. Maybe they should pay their way, even though Germany is actually the superpower inside Europe, financially speaking. They have all the wealth and all the technological power. So how come they're not paying their way? The reason why they're not paying it because they don't want to go spend it on something else.
Simple answer. All right. Let's all right, people. Let's get to our next article. We're moving right along. Let's open up my screen. All right, our next article comes from RT.com. Excuse me. Title: Russia, Turkey, and Iran speeding up efforts to drop U.S. dollar from trade. Written September 10th. All right. Article: in response to U.S. sanctions, Russia, Turkey, and Iran are negotiating the reduction of the U.S. dollar's share in mutual trade. Tehran Times Daily quotes the country's central bank governor as saying, Eliminating the greenback in mutual trade was not recently discussed by the three countries last week in Tehran during the trilateral summit of the Syrian ceasefire, said Iranian central bank governor Ab- Abdul Nasir Himati, as quoted by the media. Quote, we have decided to proceed with further work in light of the agreements reached at a meeting with the Russian central bank governor in Moscow. Himati said, end quote, Himati was quoted as saying, according to Himati, the topics discussed also included oil and gas prices, expansion of banking ties, and strengthening of economic relations. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and their delegations visited Tehran last week for a trilateral summit on on Syria and also to discuss expansion of ties. Earlier, Erdogan described the Turkish lira recent plunge to a record low as a currency plot and announced his readiness to get rid of the dollar and the country's trade with its partners. Erdogan said the dollar was an obstacle for the Turkish economy. He urged the Turks to gradually end the monopoly of the dollar once and for all, excuse me, by using local and national currency among us. Russia, which has been under the U.S. sanctions since 2014, has been a long proponent of switching to local currencies and trade with its key partners like Turkey and China. So these countries are trying to get rid of the US dollar as the trading medium in their countries, Russia, Turkey, and Iran speeding up efforts to drop US dollar from trade. Um, if Dollar Will was here, he uh, like his insights on what that could do. But we both know what the possibility of this can do both to America and to um, the other countries of the world who dropped the U.S. As the trading medium. So yeah, well, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, we have to keep in mind that Russia hasn't really been involved in the markets in quite some time, in westernized markets. So the use of the dollar is very minimal for them because the sanctions that they've been that's been put on them by the United States has kept them out of the market. So dropping the dollar altogether wouldn't be a bad thing for them, even though the dollar is moving strong against the ruble. It wouldn't actually be an actual bad thing. Now, when it comes to Iran, Iran has been out of the market as well for the last 30 years or so. So they too feel just like the Russians that there's no real reason to actually hold on to this if it's really going to be that much of a burden against their exports. And then you factor in Turkey. Turkey's lira has been spiraling out of control because the sanctions that the United States has put on their two ministers um, has
Hello?
plunged the lira. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. I think you broke up a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, what I was saying was that the lira, which is the Turkish dollar, has been spiraling out of control because the United States has put sanctions on two ministers in Turkish politics
Hmm.
based on their unwillingness to participate um, in the turning over of the Christian pastor that has been held by the Turkish government in relation to the connection of the coup attempt back in 2016. So,
Hmm.
with that being said, if the lira is going to spiral out of control, then what's the point in keeping the dollar? Um, they might as well
Right.
get off the dollar altogether. So, cryptocurrencies have been the discussion amongst these three countries and how to do business. And a good example of an alternative crypto would be the Petro for Venezuela, backed by oil. You can do the same thing in Turkey in terms of their natural resources. I believe some of their natural resources include gold.
Go Turkey. Am I correct me if I'm wrong with this? but diamonds in Russia?
Russia has quite a bit resources: natural gas, oil,
True.
iridium, cobalt, if I remember correctly, it's been found in Russia. So they have quite a few resources. Iran has oil; that's their bread and butter. So uh, they could actually create a crypto and tie it back into their oil reserves. And what they've been doing as an alternative has been using China, using the yuan as an alternative to trade in. To get around the U.S. dollar.
All right.
So other
Now,
countries are thinking about alternatives as we speak.
I don't know why they remember Russia and gas. That was one of our few first topics when we started this. Now, let me paint this scenario. Let's say Iran do go the crypto way and they do back it with gold, and they have some type of success in having a crypto tied to oil. Could they then talk to Maduro in Venezuela and pretty much coach him and give him pointers on how to do what they're doing in Iran to have some type of success with their crypto, with their petro?
Well, keep in mind that the Russians actually created the petro for Venezuela.
Mm,
I would say at least 75 to 80% of the design and development of the petro was done by the Russians. In order to help Venezuela stabilize their currency on the ground as well as their markets to get around the sanctions that the United States put on them. So it wouldn't really be too much coaching. If you want to buy Venezuelan oil, you have to use the petro. If you want to buy Iranian oil, then you would have to use an Iranian crypto.
okay.
And the same thing would go for Turkey. If Turkey was, if you want to buy gas from Turkey through the South Stream pipeline that Russia has supplied it, then you would have to actually pay Turkey in their new crypto lira. Now, the whole reason for the Syrian war, from a resource perspective, has come from wanting to run a gas pipeline from Qatar into Syria and up to Turkey and into Europe, into Bulgaria and Greece. Well, that's not going to happen because Syria has already said no, and that's what started the initial conflict. Syria is not on board with that, so whoever wants to build their wealth off of moving these resources, this natural gas through Syria is not going to happen. In Qatar, it would be SOL, so to speak, because they can't penetrate those markets. Their ability to sustain themselves is going to come to an end in probably about 20 or 30 years, and they know this. They know the writings on the wall, and that this puts Turkey in a strong position, as well as Iran, because Iran is actually an alternative energy to Qatar. So
Mm, okay. Okay. All right, people. Let's move right along. Moving right along at a good pace here tonight. Excuse me. Our next topic on the docket tonight comes from trtworld.com. Title: UN, Turkey, Iran, and Russia hold talks in Geneva on Syrian constitution. UN Special Envoy for Syria Staffan de Mistura is hosting talks in Geneva in an attempt to establish a committee to draft a new Syrian constitution. Interesting. Article: UN Special Envoy to Syria Staffan de Mistura is hosting a two-day meeting with senior officials from Turkey, Russia, and Iran to establish a Syrian Constitution Committee on Monday. The three states agreed to establish a constitutional committee during the Syrian National Dialogue Congress on January 30th, 2018, in the Russian resort city of Sochi. De Mistura will meet with the guarantor countries of the Asanta process, Turkey, Russia, and Iran, on Monday and Tuesday. On Friday, September 14, He will meet with officials from Egypt, France, Germany, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UK, and the US. Deputy Foreign Minister Sadat Onal will represent Turkey during the meetings. Talks on Monday will be closed to press, while Tuesday's meeting will be open to the media. The final declaration of the Syrian summit held by the guarantor countries in Russia in July highlighted the establishment of a constitutional committee. On July 5th, the Syrian Negotiation Commission submitted a list of 50 candidates to represent the Syrian opposition in the Constitutional Committee to the Mistura, according to the Turkish Foreign Ministry. Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has emphasized the significance of forming a constitutional committee following a trilateral meeting with his Russian and Iranian counterparts in Tehran last week. Representatives of the three guarantor countries will meet again in Geneva with the UN Secretary General's special envoy on Syria in the coming days, Erdogan said on Friday. The formation process of a constitutional committee will be discussed, and we can say that the representations have come to the last stage, he added. Establishing and making this committee, which is on the agenda thanks to the Astana process, will bring a new dynamism to the political process, he said. Erdogan, Iran's Rouhani, and Russia's Putin met in Tehran last Friday to discuss the future of Syria as a military operation looms in Idlib and released a joint statement after the summit affirming that the Syrian conflict can only end through a negotiated political process. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also agreed to help in establishing the committee. The meeting held under the UN umbrella to even the 7-year-old civil war in Syria consists of 4 titles, including transition, constitution, elections, and the fight against terrorism. All right, title again. UN, Turkey, Iran, and Russia hold talks in Geneva on Syrian constitution. All right, 2 questions for you, Mike. Why these same 3 countries again? And what benefits them from holding talks on a new Syrian constitution? Then before you say that, now to ask you those questions, I'm thinking that Russia, we all know Russia, Iran, Turkey was um, working with the Assad government to get rid of the Islamic State in Syria. And because of that, I remember we read I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago that Turkey has a upper hand in rebuilding Syria, and also Russia has a stake in rebuilding Syria. So with them coming to talks, no, I misspoke. Iran had a big upper hand in rebuilding Syria, and with them, these three not companies, but countries coming together to write up a Syrian constitution that would give them more of a position to rebuild Syria. That's my thinking about it.
To answer your question, the reason why you keep seeing those 3 countries is because they are the elected security guarantors of Syria. So it doesn't matter who's in power in Syria. Iran, Russia, and Turkey are the security guarantors of the state itself. So they are the custodians of all of security. So in terms of military, political progress, as well as logistical progress in terms of getting food and aid to people, because Turkey has 3.5 million Syrian refugees sitting inside the belly of Turkey that came from Syria during the war. 3.5 million is a substantial amount of people that they have to support, so they have to be at the table. Iran is at the table because they have a nation-state agreement, bilateral agreement that says that if Syria is attacked by a foreign power, Iran has to come to its aid. And if Iran is attacked by a foreign power, Syria has to come to Iran's aid. So there is a bilateral agreement between those two nation states, and Iran is funding a lot of Syria's operations. And then you take in Russia into consideration. Russia is the total political and military security guarantor of Syria as a whole, which is why they have a military base there.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, okay. I didn't know. I did not know they were the security guarantors of Syria. That's good insight for me.
Mhm.
Okay. I think it
What
was
they
something
want to
that I
do,
really. Go ahead.
what they want to do with the Syrian constitution is redraft it so that it includes the Kurds and gives the Kurds a nation state within Syria. But the current constitution says that you cannot build a new ethno state inside Syria under the constitution. So what the United Nations is trying to do, and I suspect that this is Israel and Saudi Arabia behind all of this, is to lop off a piece of Syria in the north and the east away from the Syrian state itself by putting military bases all around it, and then allowing the Kurds to have, um, their own independent state. And coincidentally enough, Israel has been the biggest sponsor of the Kurds having a nation state within Syria.
Really? Why?
Well, it works to their benefit. A broken Syria works best for Israel's security.
Mm, okay. Hmm. All right. Well, let's get going. Get to our next article. Any other points on that one?
No, sir.
All right. This one comes from PressTV.com. Title: Iran's IRGC confirms firing 7 missiles at Iraq-based terrorists. All right. It's written September 9th. Iran's Islamic Revolution Guards Corps, or IRCG, confirms that it has fired 7 short-range missiles at a gathering of terrorist commanders in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. All right. The missile unit of the IRGC's aerospace force, in cooperation with the drone unit of the IRGC's guard force yesterday, which was Saturday, targeted the headquarters and a meeting of leaders of a criminal grouplet and a center for training affiliated terrorists with 7 short-range surface-to-surface missiles, the IRGC said in a statement. Following wicked actions taken by the terrorist groups affiliated with the global arrogance of the Kurdistan region, wow, against Iran's border areas in recent months, the IRGC decided to counter and punish the aggressors, it added. According to the statement, the IRGC's ground force managed to deal a heavy blow to numerous terrorist teams who sought to create insecurity and carry out acts of sabotage in the Iranian provinces of West Azerbaijan, Kurdistan, and Kermanshah. The statement emphasized that the missile attack was carried out after the terrorist group's ringleader ignored serious warnings by officials of the Iraqi Kurdistan region about the Islamic Republic's determination to dismantle their bases and the necessity to end their aggressive and terroristic acts against Iran. The decisive, the decisive operation showed that the IRGC and other sections of Iranian armed forces, as well as the intelligence and security institutions, are determined to safeguard borders and territorial integration of the Islamic Republic of Iran and to defend ideals and goals of the Islamic Revolution, and will not allow terrorists recruited by the enemy's intelligence services to endanger the country's exemplary security. In early August, the IRGC announced that it had disbanded a team of terrorists on the country's border with Iraq, killing 11 of its members. The IRGC said that servicemen from the Hamza Saeed al-Shahudas base had performed the operation. Later in August, the IRGC Quds force killed 4 members of a terrorist group during clashes in the country's southeastern border with Pakistan. In a statement, the Quds force said the clashes with terrorists occurred near the Iranian city of Saravan in Sistan and Balochistan province. Read the title again. Iran's IRGC confirms firing 7 missiles at Iraq-based terrorists. All right. What can you tell us about this, Mike?
Well, Iran has problems with a specific type of Kurds that are in opposition to the establishment itself. They are a small contingent inside Iran, but they're also been expelled during the Iraq-Iran war back in the 80s. So a lot of them are living inside Iraq, and they're still left over. They basically established themselves in northern Iraq. So what's happening now is that the United States has been using these Iraqis, these Iraqi Kurds as basically mercenaries to go into Iran and cause disruption. They were successful about a couple years ago during the Obama administration at causing disruption inside the Iraqi parliament. Not the Iraqi parliament, but the Iranian parliament, and I think they killed maybe a couple of people, a couple of political figures inside Iran, but were actually defeated. But to prove a point that they can actually penetrate into Iran's security underbelly, this has been proven. So now Iran has to counter this by actually going after some of these contingents inside and outside of Iran as well. So Iraq is fair game to them, and those missiles that they've been working on, that the Trump administration has been saying, well, no more ballistic missile testing, or else, the JCPOA, which is the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, that's been agreed upon by everybody at the table, says that that Iran shouldn't be testing these ballistic missiles. In reality, those ballistic missiles were being tested outside of the framework because it didn't matter. And now you know why they've been testing them, because they're going to use them against their opposition.
I had a question, I forgot. Okay, it's not coming to me. All right. Okay. Let's get to our next. I want to hold this up. I can't remember the question I had. Let's get to our next article.
We'll come back to it, Mike.
Yeah. True. All right. This one comes from freebeacon.com. Excuse me. Title: Russian nuclear bombers intercepted near Alaska. Written by Billy Gertz on September 6th. Tu-95s intruded into U.S. air defense zone. Ooh. 2 Russian nuclear-capable bombers were intercepted by American F-22 jets near Alaska on Saturday, the North American Aerospace Defense Command disclosed. The bombers were detected flying near the Aleutian Islands, said Michael Kucherik, a spokesman for the Northern Command and North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. 2 Alaskan-based NORAD F-22 fighters intercepted and visually identified 2 new 95 Bear long-range bomber aircraft flying in the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone south of the Aleutian Islands, he told the Free Beacon. Kucherik declined to specify the distance the bombers flew from the west coast of Alaska to protect operational security. However, the 2 Russian Tu-95 bomber aircraft were intercepted and monitored by the F-22s until the bombers left the IDs along the Aleutian Islands chain headed west. He said, at no time did the Russian bombers into Canadian or United States sovereign airspace. The defense official said the Russian bombers were supposed by at least one Tu-78 minus refueling tanker jets, and indication the bombers traveled a long distance and required mid-flight refueling. No other details of the incident were disclosed. However, defense officials said the latest Russian bomber incursion coincided with large-scale military exercises now underway in the Russian Far East called Vostok 18 and were likely part of the exercise that have been underway since late August. One official speculated that the bombers were practicing cruise missile strikes on U.S. missile defenses in Alaska. The bombers are capable of carrying the nuclear-tipped KH-55 long-range cruise missile that has a maximum range of up to 1,841 miles. The intercept took place near the large phased array radar system called Cobra Dane, and that monitors Russian missile launches and aircraft flights. The radar is located in Ericsson Air Station on remote Shemya Island, one of the Aleutians located 1,455 miles west of Anchorage. Cobra Dane would be one of the first Cobra Dane would be one of the first targets of a Russian air-launched cruise missile strike in the early stages of the conflict. The bombers also were within cruise missile firing range of the U.S. missile defense base at Fort Greely, Alaska, where two range ground-based interceptors were deployed as part of the strategic missile defense. The third possible target for the bombers is the Clear Air Force Station in central Alaska that is home to the ANFPS 123 upgraded early warning system used to detect submarine-launched ballistic missiles. It was the second time Russian bombers flew close to Alaska this year. In May, two Bear H bombers were intercepted off the coast of Alaska by two F-22s. Until that incident, the last time bombers buzzed the air defense zone near Alaska was October 17. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu said in Moscow on Tuesday that the active phase of Vostok 18 will kick off at nine proving grounds and in the Sea of Japan and Bering and Okhotsk Sea beginning September 11th. Preparations for Vostok 18 including comprehensive snap checks of the central and eastern military districts, the Northern Fleet, the airborne troops, and long-range and Russian transport aircraft, Shoigu stated. The exercises are designed to test operations at an unfamiliar ground and the performance of combat training. Aircraft has been flying maximum range sorties with refueling in flight and practicing landings at tactical airfields, he said. Naval ships have been performing combat maneuvering and firing practices, Shoigu said. The exercises are said to be the largest in the history of the Russian Federation. Taking part in it will be about 300,000 troops, more than 1,000 planes, helicopters, and drones, up to 80 combat and logistics ships, and up to 36,000 tanks, armored personnel carriers, and other vehicles, Shoigu said, noting the first participation of Chinese military forces. Involved in the main scenario at the Sogol Proving Ground, the Eastern Military District, will be a contingent of the Chinese People's Liberation Army of up to 3,500 officers and men. NORAD is in charge of aerospace warning and control for Canada and the United States, and NORAD monitors all air activity emanating from within the outside North American airspace. NORAD maintains constant vigilance at the defense of Canadian and United States aerospace 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, Kucherik said. U.S. intelligence agencies are closely monitoring the war games, over concerns that they could be used as cover for actual military attacks. During the Cold War, the Soviet-led Warsaw Pact military alliance drew up war plans that included the use of large-scale military exercises as the beginning point for a war against Western Europe. Clearly, Russia is rehearsing a large-scale war. Stephen Blank, senior fellow at the American Foreign Policy Council, said of the war games in a recent article in Real Clear Defense. All right, read the title again. Russian nuclear bombers intercepted near Alaska. Now, this article is saying this wasn't the first time this has happened. It's happened at least 2 times before in recent memory, and they were intercepted by the American planes. NORAD saw how close they were. American fighter jets were detached in time to intercept them. The article did say something interesting, which said that the war games that Russia has going on with China, that it could all be a guise to perform actual military attacks in Alaska, which is U.S. territory. That's interesting for me that they will say that. Any points about this one, you have?
Yeah, I mean, in order to test your combat readiness, there's only one way to do it, and that's to actually carry out a war game. Determine where you stand militarily. The idea that they're passing, the Tu-95, the Bear warplanes over close to the Alaskan border doesn't really mean much. I mean, they share. I mean, Russia and the United States share a border artificially along that area, anyways. I mean, Russia is only about maybe 20 minutes away by flight, from Alaska. So it's a given that they're actually going to be close to, close in flying range. But in regards to the article, I mean, yeah, they're having the Vostok 2018 war games going on right now. So all of this is being taken into consideration. They're working with China. They're working with Mongolia, and and if I remember correctly, I think there's another nation state involved in this as well, but they're not really all that active in it. But the point of the matter is that they have China and Russia have all of the intentions on taking back the Pacific from the Americans, because the Americans claim the Pacific from California all the way into Osaka, China. So I mean Japan. So what's going on right now is that they're determining how well how efficient they can be in actually taking land and taking back the waters in the Pacific back from the United States, because they need their water back in case there is a war.
Okay. All right, let's get to our last topic on the docket for tonight. Let me go ahead and share my screen with this one. It's a YouTube video. Title of the video is Yasin M, Destroyer of the Depths, Potent Electronic Weapons and Supersonic Missiles. Bit of a long video, 30-minute video, but it's interesting if you like military geared content. Me, being a submarine veteran, this was interesting to say the least. My thoughts on this are as such: they go into very good detail about what the Russian government wants to be known about this new class of submarines, and they give a lot of good information. Let's see if I can pause some parts to discuss with you. All right. This is the largest submarine that's going to be in any fleet of America. Not America, but of the world. This is the largest submarine. It's one of the quickest submarines at that. You see back here at the back, you have, well, my cursor is going around frantically. You have the propeller. I'm going to guess that I think they say it's going to be a two propeller system where it's going to they're going to go in different directions. Then what that does is cut down on the chopping of the water behind the submarine. It cuts down on that. I think they call it the vortex. It cuts down on the vortex as the submarine goes through the water. And as you know, submarine, it's stealth. It needs to be stealth. The black painting actually cuts down on the noise reduction coming out of the submarine and the sonar detecting the submarine, um, the detecting the submarine, similar to the stealth air, the stealth bombers, the uh, America has. These two wings back here is what helps the submarine go up and down. Some submarines have it on the sail, which is at the front, but this is what helps the submarine go up and down. This propeller back here what helps it go left and right. As I play the video more, we're going to the front of the submarine. This right here is the sail, and a lot of all American submarines is taller, but this is more longer because it can support that length since it's the longest submarine in any fleet in the country right now. At the front, you have the sonar dome. Sonar dome is what uh, detects other things that's in the ocean. It's for sonar technicians. But this submarine here is not double hulled. Double hulled meaning there's two holes, the inner and the outer hole. The hole is thicker. Is what it is. It's able to withstand more weight and pressure. You can't easily sink it if you have regular torpedo. You have to have a more powerful torpedo when you want to sink this. But that's not to say a regular torpedo won't damage it. You know, it'll damage it. It'll definitely need to get out the water. Now, what a lot of people don't realize in submarines are they're huge. Oh my God, they're so huge, and this one is bigger. The type of missiles there, I believe, yes, this journalist right here, the type of missiles that they're said to carry on this is, I want to say they're going to use surface to air, new type of torpedo also is going to be held into it. But I'm trying to think of the missiles they're going to, other missiles they're going. Oh yeah, right in the video, the supersonic missiles, which can cut down on really airplanes and other foreign missiles fired toward friendly surface ships. Also, it said that it really don't need to go to the surface as much to collect data to get orders. It's this is a bad submarine, just to say the least. Um, yeah, America's current class submarines are, I want to say the current one is the Seawolf, not the Seawolf, but the Los Angeles class submarines. You got the ballistic missile submarines, which are basically the hotels of the submarine force. Um, yeah, this is this is something. Russia's last, well, I would say current class submarines, the Seawolf. This is the new one, the Yasim M. So there's not many of them in the sea right now, but they're going to be cranking them out within the next few years. The reporters mentioned. Yeah, these pipes that are sticking out. This is the American submarine because you got the flag right there. These pipes that are sticking out are for diesel engine. This is for data collection, satellite. You have a lot of these for diesel engines. So when it really run close to the surface, you can cut off the reactor from working so hard and run on diesel. You could tell how fast it's going just looking at the water. I can't tell how many knots it's going, but you could tell how fast it's going by looking at the water crashing off the hull of the submarine of the ship. Uh, yeah, it's pretty impressive. You got any points on this one, Mike?
Well, the reason why I sent it to you because I know you're a submarine guy, and I know you would be impressed by something like this. This is top of the line. You know, the last Russian submarine that was deployed was actually it actually has longer range than any of the competing American submarines, and that it is actually considered to be quieter. This was back in 2013. This
Mm.
is 2018 now. They're launching a new submarine that's has even longer range, even quieter, even stronger than what the Americans can put out. And it has these new KH-55 ballistic missiles on there that could actually, that has long range. You can basically fire missiles, multiple cruise missiles, into places that are way out of its geographical range from a view standpoint. Um, and they also have the AWACS built into the hull that you mentioned earlier into the sonar dome. It's basically an AWAC for
Mhm.
uh, in similarity to what a warplane would have if it's collecting reconnaissance in the air. The submarine can do the exact same thing. This is something that hasn't been done before, especially at the cost level. This is actually cheaper than what the Americans can produce. Almost, I think, like 50% cheaper.
Mhm.
And the little image that you have, the screenshot that you have up, is that
Yeah.
the Russians have the ability to put tanks inside their submarines and actually put them out in terms of as a landing vehicle.
That when I
Which
heard
is
that,
something the
that
Americans don't
was
have.
wow. Yeah, Americans definitely do not have that. When he said that, I'm like, wow, they are really doing some high tech level engineering here.
Now, in a submarine like that, I don't know how many tanks you would be able to get in there. I'm pretty sure that they're especially designing these tanks to be very compact and purpose built for that submarine. But the point of the matter is that the ability to put 8 tanks inside of a submarine and the ability to get close to someone's shores, like in Florida, and actually have
Mhm.
these things run right up in Miami. That no, that's a game changer. That
Yeah,
is a
because
game changer, especially you have these tanks firing, in a blitzkrieg formation. You really can't stop that.
right, and it would have to get close to the shore just to get them tanks out and on the shore. So I'm guessing the I saw the image. Let me go back to the frame. This will have to be some. This will have to be the shape of the submarine because a teardrop shaped submarine is not getting that close to the shore because show you all something. The all right, in this image, this is what basically is out the submarine that you would see out when the submarine surfaces, like 30% of the 30% of the submarine. You got 70% of the submarine that is underwater, pretty much like a iceberg. But what people don't realize is how many floors are in a submarine. There can be 3 levels in a regular submarine. This one is even bigger. So that frame where this little toy tank, this will have to be that submarine. But even still, they will have to modify the tanks to get them to get from as close as the submarine can get to shore, or carry something else to carry the tanks to the shore.
Well, um, in the video they say that that submarine is at least 10 stories tall. So, um, so to your point, yeah, it would, and they consider it to be longer and not taller than the American. So, I guess height doesn't really mean much in terms of the design. I think the length is more important for them. But the,
Hmm.
the submarine is supposed to be at least 10 metric stories tall. So you factor in it's got to be at least what let me see, 3 stories is about 30-35 feet. Yeah, it's got to be at least 120 feet up.
And that's impressive because, like I said before, the sail isn't tall. The sail is a chubby, long tail, which means that's, to me, that's more impressive because when you measure a submarine, you measure it from the bottom of the keel to the top of the sail. And American sails are pretty long, pretty tall. I mean, um, this Russian one is shorter, so that's even more inside the submarine, more bulk, more height to the roundness of to the main part of the submarine is what I'm trying to say.
Right, it makes it more stealth.
Yeah, and this is the
Yeah,
type of.
and in terms,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that the tanks that you saw in the picture, they actually have Russia actually has these special tanks that they've designed in the last couple of years that have propellers on the back of them for floating through water.
Really, that's impressive.
Yeah, I think it's called the T. Yeah, I think they call it the T-14 or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, I
And
think it's called the T-14 Armada.
this piece of metal, I don't want to say what it could maybe is. This piece of metal is this is a dense piece of metal. People don't realize how dense this is, because it's designed to be so thick and so dense. To give you an idea, American submarine, like let's say king size Snickers, you cut off that piece of that same shape of an American submarine, and you drop it, and it hits your foot is going to be broken. It will break your feet. I mean your foot. That's how dense and heavy and that's how dense and heavy it is. If you just drop it at just just drop it on your foot, you ain't got to just throw it down. Just drop it. It will break your foot. That's how thick this metal is, and the metal they design is an even stronger metal because of the pure size of the submarine that they're building. So this is not no cheap metal.
Right. In the video, it's mentioned that it's steel, and they're determining the depth that the submarines are going to go down, how much weight can it handle as it goes deep below the surface. Um, Obviously, Russia goes through a lot of stress tests, and a lot of people who are haters of the Russians don't realize how much effort they put into all their products going out. Um, the ability to test this type of metal and actually show it. You don't see American military showing off any sort of testing or anything like that of their equipment or their military hardware because you know obviously because
Right.
for profit
Secret.
reasons. But
Right.
this is Russia showing exactly what they're capable of doing.
And the reason I know that it'll break your foot is because it happened not to me, but a shipmate of mine. It happened to him. You know, I said king size Snicker. It was the same exact size. Albeit the edges were sharp, but it broke his foot. He just said he just dropped it on his foot and it broke his foot, and he was in a cast. His foot was in a cast. This is, you see the top view of the sail right there. So I'm guessing this right here is the antenna, shaped like an antenna. I don't know what may go here. This is where you would go into the submarine from top side. One other way because it got the wheel there. Um, More electrical equipment, I'm guessing right here. Yeah,
People need to keep in mind that these submarines, or a submarine like this, is like a floating military base
it is.
underwater. It's basically Atlantis.
It is. The only reason, technically, since it's nuclear powered, the only reason it will need to come up is for food. Is for food. If this was autonomously powered, if there was no humans under there, it could go for years without coming up, like to the surface. It can come up enough to get information because they're still like we went over. They still are perfecting that information where you can send signals through the water. But yeah, if this is autonomously powered, it will need to come up. Only reason submarines come up is for food.
You know, to your point about it being autonomous, Russia actually has discussed earlier this year. Putin said that they have an autonomous submarine that is nuclear powered that can actually be used as a missile, as a torpedo from the surface into air and fire off at any given point, and be undetected by typical sonar. So that means the Russians actually, they're working on something very powerful.
Hmm. Yeah, this isn't anything to scoff at. This is some real stuff right here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was impressed by it, so I said let me send it to these guys and see what they think about this, because this is something that I haven't seen done anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big submarine. Um, I understand when people look at submarines on TV just to understand, you know, it is just to understand, try to get in your mind how big it is. Looking at it on the screen is one thing, but when you go see it, especially I know in New Hampshire they have the Nautilus, the first teardrop submarine. I think it was whole number 586 or 587, but that was small. I don't think I could have served on that one comfortably. That was pretty small. But the fast attack submarines are big. The ballistic missile submarines are huge. They're like a building underwater. That's how wide they are. You know,
Mhm.
you know you can be up under those comfortable. But this one right here is insane. I mean, you just going into a submarine and being impressed how people live. Okay, now this right here, this is impressive right here. The rocket. Okay, it's coming out of water. All right, but then in midair it changes directions. That's I mean, what? It's not too much you can do. Look at it. It's not too much you can really do. You know.
Yeah, and the detection time for a missile strike like that is in seconds. And that means you only have seconds to react, because the submarine, you don't have no idea what a submarine is, so you have no idea where the attack is coming from.
And like you mentioned earlier, the Russians have new missiles that can fire so far away that it's really hard to detect it.
They demonstrated that in Syria in 2015, and I think it was November or December of 2015, when they launched 26 cruise missiles from a submarine from the Mediterranean, and basically hit every single target inside Syria.
Hmm. And those are the new style of torpedoes. Those are long torpedoes. They not too much longer, but they are noticeably longer. Oh, this is
Well, it's for a longer sub too, right? I mean, keep in
yeah,
mind that this is one of the longest subs, so they have the ability to have that flex, to have that length in
and
place.
extra technology too, because this part blew my mind. The type of technology that the sub not the submarine, the torpedo have, where when they shoot it off, it doesn't need to be shot at a target. It can be shot and it can basically lay low, lay submerged until the enemy submarine comes past. Then it can be activated and shoot down the enemy submarine.
It's a sea mine,
Yes,
underwater sea mine. Yeah, but it has artificial intelligence built into it.
that's amazing. that makes submarine warfare harder.
especially using the blockchain.
Yeah, oh man. Hey, Russia is doing something, man. They're actually using this new technology and not trying to fight it.
Hmm.
They are.
And
They
if you look at that last clip, it shows that there's an invisible dome. We saw in Black Panther that there was an invisible dome over Wakanda. So
hmm
they're thinking way ahead, way ahead than what you know most people seem to be thinking.
Yeah, that's pretty big, man. Um, I think a American fast attack submarine is 360 feet long. Um, I wanna. Well, if it's on Google, anybody can see it. Length.
Hmm.
Yeah, 377 feet long. So this one,
That Yasmin.
yeah, Yasin. I'll look up his specs. Yasin. Um, I haven't got the specs up yet, but it is longer. Yeah, it
I
should be
think
here.
I think in the beginning of the video, it actually mentions it.
458 feet.
Compared to
Plus,
what 377 for the
yeah,
American.
yeah, and that's the fast attack. Ballistic. So, so it's like I think it's the same size of a ballistic missile submarine, but faster. It's more agile. The ballistic missile is ballistic. It carries ballistic missiles. But yeah, it's it's more dangerous because say 458. It's more dangerous because ballistic missile submarine carries ballistic missiles, and it's a Ohio class submarine. Which okay, ballistic missile submarines are named after states. Fast attack submarine, which are the new ones, are the Virginia class submarine, are named after cities. But the ballistic missile class submarine doesn't go to too many places, doesn't port to too many places because A, it's nuclear technology, and B, it has ballistic missiles on it. So just to cut down on the possibility of getting pirated, you don't go nowhere, which means that they have shorter stints out at sea, and they just stay in the ocean without porting often. But this one, the CISM, is between the length is between the fast attack and the ballistic missile, but it's more agile. So you get something almost 100 feet longer, more technology, bigger in terms of the roundness of it. Also, this is really dangerous as it's high
And it has
technology.
and it
Huh?
has contra propellers on the back, so it has the dual propellers on the back that are spinning in opposite directions to reduce the amount of
Yes,
vortex coming out of the back of it. So you can't even tell where it is.
pretty
It's like
silent.
traditionally, yeah, traditionally what you would have saw with some of these older submarines coming out of the United States, or even France for that matter. France is very good at building submarines, but nothing to this extent.
Yeah. Uh,
I think what's going to happen with submarines going forward, you're going to see a lot more artificial intelligence put in. You're going to see a lot more less manpower being put into it in terms of you don't need as many sailors on board of a submarine that you would have before. So I think in this submarine for the Yasmin is what was it like 36 sailors on
wait,
guys
it
on
has,
board?
you said 36?
Yeah, I think something like that.
Wow, that's yeah, they got some technology in there. They got some artificial intelligence and some autonomous technology in there, no
Yeah,
doubt.
I'm referring back to the video, but they said that it needs less it needs less men than it would have before.
Yeah, yeah. If it need that many men, yeah, they got some technology on there. Because American, you go in to see with no less than 100 men. So and this is how the contra propellers they go different directions from each other, and it cuts down on the vortex. Vortex meaning the everything after that. If they were going the same direction, it'll be longer. But since they're going in the opposite direction, it's shorter. Which is that way you cut down on you decrease your chances of being caught by sonar. Yeah, that was a good video, man. Great video. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to do another one next week.
Yeah, yeah. Outstanding. Uh,
Hey, what's going on, Ulysses?
what's going on, man?
Chilling, man. What's good?
All right.
Just really digging the submarine tech talk here, man. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Submarines are pretty interesting.
Yeah, you don't really hear too many people digging too much into submarines, so this is real interesting.
Yeah, we used to they told us when I first got on a submarine, they said submarine can stay down. They said forever, but when nuclear rods wear out, you got to replace them because that's your fuel. But they said we don't need to come up for food, because your fruit started. If you don't eat it, it gets rotting, and then you start. You got your freezer, but once you go through freezers, well, once you go through your meat and shrimp, yeah, shrimp, and chicken and stuff like onions and bell peppers. Even though we carry a lot of that, after a while, that starts to go. Then you start going to the tapping into your dry food. But once that starts to go, you really ain't got nothing left.
Mm. They experimented with growing food on board.
Not when I was in. That would be interesting
That,
because
that
hmm,
no, go right ahead, Lionel. I'll go right after you.
that would be interesting because we make our own water.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's been discussed before. That's been discussed before about you know, creating your own farms on board. But when you have less soldiers or less sailors on board, then you kind of don't have to worry about food going bad because that small amount of sailors will eat that stuff up. So
Hmm.
Right. If you have less sailors, that means less space used to like house and contain them, which means space that could then be utilized to like grow food. So you have a longer, more sustainable environment where you can kind of sustain the amount of time you're underwater.
and keep in mind, Ulysses, this is a longer submarine. This is like something that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah, I was checking
And
that out. I
the
was like,
height of
damn.
Yeah, and the height of it, you can actually put 10 shipping containers stacked on top of each other, and create your own little farms inside. I mean, that can go pretty far. Basically, or aquaponics underwater.
Yep.
No,
They they
something.
they have the room. And trust and believe, storing food will not be a problem. When you storing food underwater in the submarine, yeah, you use your compartments that is used like your number 10 cans. You use your auxiliary tanks for that. But I mean, people stash their stash food like in the ceiling, outboard, under benches, back aft in the nuclear part of the submarine. They store
Mhm.
food anywhere. So imagine you making the food, then storing it. They'll end up making more food than. Trust me, I I I know these. I know some of these the mind, the thought capacity, how these people think. You know, to go on a submarine and say I'll be there for 3 months, or 6 months, and I don't see the sun for a couple months. You gotta be brave to do that for one. And then they what they do is psych each other up. So they say, oh, okay, we can make this food. Then they get underway. They say, okay, let's make more. Let's grow more apples, more bananas, more this, more that, more that. So you get to a point where they don't even eat the supply they have, because they have so much food and they can stay underwater. They, they're going to push themselves. That's what I'm trying to say. They're going to push themselves to stay underwater more and longer. So these people are, I'm gonna say psycho. I'm one of them, but these people are psycho.
Well, I mean, if they're already, training Air Force and astronaut pilots to maybe perhaps sustain, what are they predicting? How long is it? A year and a half journey or something like that to Mars, or however long it is. I mean, I would imagine you would probably try and do that first underwater here. And so I would imagine also that there have probably been tests and things of that sort that have been done that are probably classified that we don't know about, where subs have probably been underwater for, I don't know, 3-4 years, maybe longer. They've already done these types of enclosed, long distance type, endurance tests on the human body in real time, real live situations and environments. So, I mean, it would be my guess that it's probably been done.
The longest I stayed underwater was a month. Just a month. Yeah, and I didn't. You know it, but at the same time, you don't notice it because you're working so hard, 12 on, 12 off, and you got your own type of entertainment. You bring movies underwater. You just have real chit chats with the guys and the fellas. You have your private time, and after a while, you like, oh man, we spent 21 days in the water. Oh, it's a month. But then you will come up and people see the sun. That happens in the middle of the ocean. And you go back down. It's you don't get freaked out. If you do, they'll put you to sleep, and you just wake back up and go at it again. Trust me, I know,
Life of a submariner.
Yeah, I freaked out a little bit, so I know they put you to sleep. I freaked out a little bit, but I mean, everybody do. Everybody.
Man, if you're gonna be underwater for like a month, I know I'd freak out.
But you don't notice it because you're working 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
Well, think about what you're saying, Ulysses, when you say that a flight from Earth to Mars is probably about a year, right? You're talking about putting astronauts inside of a ship that's moving at 20,000 miles an hour, at least at Mach 5. For a certain amount of months. At some point these people are going to go nutty.
Yep.
Yes.
On top of the fact that your body going to sustain so much.
You see, on top of the fact your body do what now?
Sustain. It can only sustain so much.
Yeah, you can only sustain so much. Of lack of oxygen and things like that. You have muscle deterioration, all types of things. And when you're in a submarine, you're kind of encapsulated away from that part of the environment. You don't have to really worry too much about that.
And then you're also
dive up and dive down.
And your sense of gravity is still the same, right? When you go up, it's a different gravitational environment. Yeah.
If you go up or down, you're gonna definitely feel and see that. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I like this. We used to test out the rotors and the fins in the back, so we'll go up and down, and they'll tell us we're gonna do a 5-degree tilt or whatnot, and people will stand in the mess, the galley area, stand in between the benches, and when they go up, we'll lean forward.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, and just don't fall because you still got the gravity, and it's you just feel it. You just feel the boat going up. We'll go forward so far. You just don't believe, like, wow, this is pretty incredible. And something else we used to do was I got a headache doing this. We'll simulate, it's a fire. So we'll put on these masks, and we'll have to connect to the oxygen oxygen lines. So it's a connection every 3 feet or something like that. I forgot what's the real number, but you have to disconnect, hold your breath, and reconnect. So we'll go through the drill doing that. But I was a cook, so I'm in the kitchen connecting really to one and breathing in that recycled air, and I'm getting headaches, and I'm trying to cook this steak and mashed potatoes in the galley. And I'm about to
mask on.
Yeah, with a mask on. It was fun. It was fun doing it. I kid you not. It was fun doing it. But once it's over, you realize you got a hell of a headache. And you cooking. Yeah, I drove the submarine before. That was fun.
Isn't it something like you have to have done everything on the submarine or something like that, or you have to? Everybody on the submarine has to be trained in all aspects of the sub.
You have to know something of somebody else's job, just in case that person goes down or that whole department goes down.
Right.
Then you have some type of working knowledge of how to work to do their work.
And another thing that's interesting, man, when I used to recruit in the steel industry, one of the things that I used to recruit heavily were dudes who worked on subs, like the maintenance mechanics. These dudes could like tear down a damn nuclear reactor and put it together essentially. And like here in the industrial, in the commercial industrial environments, they don't really see how the skills of a sailor, right? Especially like somebody who's like I forgot what they're called, what their rank was called, but they're like maintenance, right? These are the dudes that could literally tear down they could basically tear down the reactor and throw the thing back together.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I was about to say A ganger, but they do the diesel. But I know
or the diesel, or the guys who could tear down the whole the diesel and throw that thing back together.
Yeah, A ganger. Yeah, they have to know that because while they underway, they practice and they work on the telescopes too.
So those dudes, they come back and they largely get passed over for like industrial positions and stuff. But when I would recruit these dudes, I'd bring them into the steel game, dude. I'd be like, look, these dudes tearing down a whole diesel powertrains for subs and throw them back together.
Hey man,
this guy can go in here and
man, these people are nuts, man. Hey, okay, yeah, we already a little nutty for going to submarine, but these guys, they tear down the thing. What? I rephrase that. They don't tear it all the way down. If it's something broken, you gotta know how to fix it while at sea.
You got to it's a what they call a lockout tagout procedures. So you isolate wherever the problem is, right? And you do it in such a way where everything else that can work, you leave that running.
Yeah. You hit it on there. You hit on the head with that one. I saw one guy. He was working on a telescope. That, man, it looked so cool, man. Because he was there in the control center working on the telescope. Oil up.
Periscope.
Yeah. Periscope. Why say telescope? Periscope.
Thinking about space.
Yeah, man. You said the Mars. I'm start thinking telescope. The periscope. He was oiling up the rings, the rubber rings and everything, because you let them things dry out. It's over with. But he was there. He was just working on it. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I chose the wrong job because they super mechanics, man. They super mechanics.
Yep. Those dudes should be able to come out of the military and go into like some high level engineering type stuff, dude. They shouldn't have to go and get a degree and all that. These dudes come out of the military already knowing more than people who come out of college.
I would assume that they have a degree while they're in the military, though.
Yeah, they can, because they go through their A school is so long. Some of these A schools are so long. Just for cook school is like 2 months, but theirs is like 7-8 months.
Yeah, but here's the problem in the industrial environment, and this is where I had to like literally bump heads with like high level management, in terms of their hiring practices, right? Because of what their requirements were, and the fact that when you came out of the military, that I'm trying to remember the actual grade for the guys who did that. See, what it didn't translate over into something that would so for example, if you went through the military, right, and you got an honorable discharge, and let's just say you did a few tours and that's what you did, you were a diesel mechanic guy, right? So coming out of that honorable discharge, that should be the equivalent of a degree, right? Or the training that you got should be the equivalent of a degree. However, it doesn't translate over into that. So a lot of these guys get passed over for work. And I used to be like, dude, what are you, I was like, these guys come out here knowing more than the guys who got the degrees. What the hell's your problem? And dude, just like that, we had whole entire, where I was part of the team who put it together. We had basically hiring training and recruitment training on guys coming out of the military, right? How to understand what their position and what their rank was, and how it translates over into a position that you may be recruiting for, and how to sell it to the hiring managers. So, I mean, yeah, those are highly skilled, man, highly skilled.
Well, from what I understand, a lot of those guys go end up working for Raytheon or
private sector,
stuff like that. Anyways,
for a private sector. There's only so many of those jobs, though, And then even then, a lot of that stuff is contingent upon government contracts. Government contracts have durations, A lot of those guys also end up working in the big oil.
The nukes, they go to school for 2 to 3 years. So they definitely, when they come out, they definitely have a degree tantamount to, what's the school in Boston? MIT. Yeah, they definitely, because it was one guy, he was in my boot camp class, and I ran back into him at sub school, and he was saying, after boot camp, I went to A school, which is cook school down in Texas, San Antonio, Texas. Then I went to sub school, which is in Groton, Connecticut. And when I saw him again, he was saying he was just starting to get into his classes 2 months later, because it's so long. They got to qualify. They have to pass their tests. You're a nuke. You're not gonna pass no class with no C. No, you got to either take it over again. If you take it over again, fail so many times, they're gonna reassign you. But he was telling me that. I'm like,
the passing. Huh? Yeah, the passing score is something. Yeah, I think the passing score is something like an 81 or something like that.
Yeah, it is. It literally is. So if you keep failing, they're just gonna reassign you. And these guys don't want to get reassigned, because back then, they were getting $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 signing bonuses, and that was contingent on them passing the classes, passing submarine school. And even after, because the nuke school was at the same place as some sub school, so even passing not submarine, but their nuke school, they still had to go through submarine schools, was like 2 months, 2.5 months. So yeah, they were getting paid, man.
I mean, I didn't mean to derail the geopolitics hour into sub talk.
No, this is open mic.
No. We're open mic. Oh, okay. Yeah, man. No. I mean, the sub game is real interesting stuff, man. I learned a lot about it when I started recruiting a lot of dudes coming out of the services.
It's fun though. I tell you, man, it's fun because you got you got brothers forever, you know. Because you on a submarine, you can't do nothing but chit chat, talk. You know, you can't do nothing but know people. You know, get to be friends with people. You can't do nothing but do that. I remember we was on I don't know which deployment we were on, if it was a 3 month or a couple weeks or a month, I don't know what it was. But me and this guy, he was from Jacksonville, Florida. I still talk to him. He he's a sonar tech. And one day we were just at the front of the ship, like far as you can go, and there was these bags that held something, but they were soft. You know, so it was soft for you to sit on, and it was cool in this area because you know it had a lot of machinery there, so it had to be cool. And we just chopped it up for a couple of hours, man. We just sit there, chopped it up, and that was just one of the fondest memories I had because no, where you going? You know, you in the middle of the ocean, so you ain't going nowhere.
This
And
is gonna sound like a stupid question.
What's up?
Internet access?
No, no, You gotta be close to the surface for that. But guys do smoke underwater because they filter the air and go back into the system, to the boat. But I mean, you don't smell cigarette smoke after it's being filtered. But yeah, that was the funnest memories I had, man. Just chopping it up, you know. Got a little break, just talk for a couple of hours. You know, guys playing a movie on at the where you eat at, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't have any any tales that are quite that quite that interesting. You know, being on a submarine and stuff like that, man. Like, shit.
I remember we ported in Port Canaveral. What's that? Yeah, I was on a submarine because I did a 6 month on a carrier too. So I try not to get the deployments mixed up. But we was in Port Canaveral, Florida, and we went to Cocoa Beach. I didn't know this place existed. Like I thought it was like something from Cocoa Beach, But I remember because that was my first time in Florida, and I remember the weather. Like, okay, this is a nice weather. It was, of course, we went to Hooters. Of course we did that. Strip club, blah blah blah. But I remember I was on duty, and as a cook, I think all submarines do this. What happens is you cook lunch, dinner, then come back in the morning, cook breakfast. You can go out, but you got to come back in. If you don't come back in, then that's your ass. We was in Port Canaveral. I went out. I don't know where I went to. I can't remember, but for somehow I wound up being the designated driver because the person that rented the car, he decided to get drunk, and of course everybody else got drunk because that's the thing to do. Like, whatever, okay. So I'm driving people around Port Canaveral, Florida, to and fro at nighttime from the boat, picking people up, tired, had to wake up and cook breakfast, and the ceiling is like 6 foot. The height of that level of the boat is like 6'3". I'll say 6'3". So I'm 6'1". So I'm on the griddle, tired, want to go to sleep, and the heat is bouncing because it's metal. It's all metal. The heat is bouncing off the ceiling, just on top of my head, behind my neck. People want to come in, order the omelets with everything on it, and I was tired, man. I was hella tired. I remember that because I was so tired after my shift. after the morning talk, I just went to sleep, man.
Hey, yo, Leno, I just posted a link over in this over in the side. I'm gonna post it over in the chat area too. Have you ever heard of AUTEC?
No, I have not.
Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center?
No.
It's literally like it's like a deep ocean. It's like a deep sea naval testing facility, right? Where literally like it's basically on land, and then it's also partly in the ocean too. And there's a part where like subs can actually go underneath, like where the facility is set up.
Okay.
And then, yeah, like if you want to check that out, dude, like I learned about this some time ago. It's it's located out in the Atlantic. And I thought this was like pretty interesting, dude, because this is where, you know, a lot of that undersea naval testing and all that stuff they do with subs, and as far as calibration and all these different things that they do, man. This is one of these facilities that they do it at. It's like located in the Bahamas, Andros Island.
Yeah, I saw they say yeah, Andros Island. Yeah. I mean, looking back, once you tell your stories, looking back, I had fun. Yeah. Any other comments?
No, man.
You any other comments, Mike?
Well, we can actually just bring listeners up to speed about the friendly fire between Syria and Russia, bringing down their AWAC plane in the Mediterranean.
Ooh.
That plane has still not been rescued as of yet. Israel is basically saying that they don't really have anything to do with it. They blame the Iranians and the Syrians. However, their F-16 fighter jets were hiding behind the the surveillance plane that was going in for a landing. And when the ballistic missile was shot off, the surface-to-air missile was shot off, it actually hit the Russian plane instead of hitting the F-16s that the Israelis were flying at the time. And they only gave the Russians 60 seconds of an alert that they were going to be striking Syria in that vicinity. So they had no time to launch countermeasures. There was no time to turn off the surface-to-air missile system, put it in passive mode. You basically compromise the Russians, the Syrians, as well as violated Lebanese airspace. So now there's going to be contingencies put in place, I think, going forward from Vladimir Putin, that this won't happen twice. You won't be able to get that off twice.
Now, I'm not familiar with what's going on, man. I've been so wrapped up in bird work. But so I assume that this was something here where a Russian plane was shot down, and I guess this was a Syrian Syrian armament that knocked it down.
Yeah, it was a Syrian S-200 missile system, surface-to-air missile system that actually fired off.
Okay.
It's based on the radar map that was in place. So keep in mind that it's looking for these F-16s, but the F-16s are flying aggressively low in comparison to the Russian surveillance plane in the Mediterranean, and they planned that accordingly, knowing that the Russian plane was going to be flying at which time and at which altitude. They said that the F-16s were flying at 500 meters above water, which is relatively low.
That's low.
100 meters is the size of a football field. So you multiply that times 5, you got 5 football fields in height.
It's not low. That's not high at all.
Yeah, in fact,
Yeah, not high at all.
They call it flying. A lot of them are flying almost supersonic speed, at low heights. They call it flying nap of the earth. That's actually what they actually call the term, and it's hard to get a radar track on them. But my understanding was that these surface-to-air missile systems that they're firing, are these designed in China as well? Are these Chinese made?
No, these are Russian made. These are
They're
These were acquired during the Soviet Union era, so they go all the way back to the 1960s.
Okay, yeah, okay. I thought I didn't know if they were Chinese made or Russian made, but yeah, but you know we know how to kind of deal with that. We kind of got that. You know, the tornadoes used to do the same thing, or those are the English kind of a high performance aircraft. But it's a nasty kind of game over there. I would like to see how this is going to kind of end up, but it's a technology war. But it's also showing you some of the older technology can still get you. But like you said, those were designed in the 60s or the 70s. You know
S-200s?
Yeah.
F-75s came out. F-75s came out in the early 60s, so that came out, you know, just after the Korean War, and then the S-200 or the S-200 came out during Vietnam.
Right. Okay. All right. Interesting. What's up, fellows? How you guys doing?
Good, how you doing?
Oh,
Lionel, what's going on, man?
Not much. Yourself? How you doing?
Man, how you feeling, brother? Just want to know how you feeling, man.
Oh, I feel better.
That's good.
Sound
great,
better. Sound better.
Yeah, you definitely sound better, man. Sound like you ready to grab one of them nurses, man. I don't know.
I don't know about that one.
Hold this dude back, man. Shit.
I don't know about that one.
Keep his hands down and shit.
Oh, shit.
Right,
That's too long of a ride to do that.
Is that off chat?
Nah, so that's not even one chat. That's, oh God, I would not do that, man.
Yeah, you know, we just
No discussion at all.
Just messing with you, brother. Just messing with you. Just making sure you're okay. As we say around the old neighborhood, we're just busting balls, brother. Busting balls.
Yeah, man. That's
hopefully you're doing well.
That's a hashtag Lionel me too, man. Yeah, get me.
Him too.
Right, him too.
Put him in all kind of hot water. We don't want to see that happen.
You too?
Yeah, too. Hey, Nogone, do you have anything you want to add, geopolitically speaking? Have you?
Well, what are you guys kind of getting in on? I'd like to. I'm getting here a little bit later.
It's kind of open right now. We were talking sub tech, and then we kind of transitioned over into. Mike was talking about the Russian plane that was shot down. I guess it was a Syrian armament that did it.
Yep.
And we're kind of talking about the nature of that. I'm wondering, was it, given that the Israelis kind of throw their hands up, but typically these types of things, you usually signal some type of Mossad involvement. It was maybe there was a hack that took place that pointed the the armament off in a direction where it wasn't intended to go. That's why only a 60-second warning came. Like, oh, yo, that's coming.
That's their way of basically saying, screw everybody else. We're here to do something, and we're going to be out of here. So they fired those guided missiles from those F-16s. I forget how many it was, probably about 28 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically turned off into the Mediterranean. They flew out of range anyways of that S-200. But the Russian plane was well within range.
Right.
What I'm also thinking as well, because see what we're seeing being played out here a little bit, and we also kind of can see a little bit of where Iran might have some influence. If really the Israelis are looking to get into a war with Iran at this stage and move, I don't think that's going to be a good move for them. I think that I know I'm prognosticating a little bit, maybe looking a little bit more into the future, but I don't think that's something that I think the Israelis are going to want to play with.
Wait, man, isn't Netanyahu been pushing hardcore for that?
I'm thinking he's.
But they're already at war with them at this point.
Yeah, but I'm saying they want to go full out. They really want to go in there and start, making some kind of invasion moves, and I think they're gonna get waxed doing this shit. That's what I think. I think the Iranians are ready. That's and I think they're proxying this a little bit in Syria. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, keep in mind that Israel has been killing most of Iran's nuclear scientists, on a regular basis.
Yes, they have. They've been assassinated.
Iran streets.
Yeah.
They've been going around, just doing drive-by shootings on their scientists. So to slow them down. But that's how far they're willing to go. You know, I read another article that they assassinated one of their guys through toothpaste. Basically, I think we might have covered it on our hangout. They found out what kind of toothpaste the guy was using, and they replicated the toothpaste and swapped it out. And he brushed his teeth, and it basically poisoned him.
Damn.
Yeah. They're real sick. I mean, they're slick. They're good with putting small bombs and cell phones and all this kind of stuff that you don't even know. You know.
Yeah.
You make a few calls, it works okay, and then one day they decide to blow you up. You don't even know what's in there, and then bang, you know.
But wait, I'm seeing like this new type of tech now where they're using like basically commercially available, you know, like those little toy drones, little small ones.
Yeah.
What they do is they put a chip on top of it, right? That's basically running like facial recognition software, along with a little 3-gram C4 explosive, right? The camera finds you, runs right into you, boom, right in your face.
Damn.
They call it suicide drones.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think these guys, if they're trying to get ready for it, maybe it is, but I think, you know, a lot of the aircraft, because in order for Israel to really get into Iran, they got to fly in there. They're gonna have to fly in. And bomb, and I know they're going to drop a lot of missiles, or they're going to try to get live with it, but they're going to have to come in there with aircraft, and I think that's going to be kind of rough. And I don't know if they're going to be prepared, maybe even for some of the counters, or some of the counters that Iran's going to have. So this is going to be. I pray that this does not happen. I really do pray, because I think when and if it does, we may be looking at. Really kind of a World War III type of scenario, potentially. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I mean, this has all been very, you know, this has all kind of been very multivariant at this point. I mean, if the trade war was any indication as to what a possible physical global war would look like, then you know, I think we've already kind of seen it on more of the trade war side of things. So,
yeah.
You know, I think, okay, look, so, you know, war can also take place on the business level.
Outer space.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
It can take place outer space. It can take place on, you know, terrestrial land, in the water, cyberspace, you know, through business. Okay. You know what I mean? It's kind of, in my view, we're in it. We're in it now. To what extent? Okay, is it largely cyber along with trade? Is it an equal mix of trade, cyber, some theater? You know what? I think it's kind of multivariant at this point. What do you think, Mike?
When you decide to put sanctions on another country, that is a form of
that's warfare.
Exactly, that's warfare. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a hostile act.
Yes, yes, it is.
So we've been, you know, remember we were in a Cold War for 40 years. You know, a Cold War literally, you know, so yeah, that was with the Soviet Union. You know, Soviet Union fell, the Cold War was supposed to be on, and now we're in another phase of the Cold War as well. That, in my view, is quite a bit. It's a bit different, but I think even that much more dangerous. And some of the inroads that they have made into our country, even by getting their hooks into the presidency and these kind of things, I think they are. It's my opinion, and I know that they're going to be those who are going to disagree with me. But I I believe that these guys are actually winning it, slowly but surely. Unfortunately, I believe.
Which guys?
The Ruskies, the Russians, the de facto Chinese connect. I think they're playing a low intensity warfare.
I share that view.
Yeah, I think they're winning.
I share that view.
We actually covered that tonight. I know, and I were discussing, you know, the Turkey, Iran, what's the other country?
Turkey, Iran, and Russia, right?
Yeah, Turkey, Iran, and Russia, working on dropping the dollar as a means to getting around getting around sanctions and doing business. And there's been wide discussion about Turkey embracing the crypto lira, you know, to soften the blow of the currency spiral. So Turkey's feeling it, Iran's feeling it, Venezuela's feeling it. China's been long talking about, you know, basically you know, basically trading Iranian oil in for yuan. You know, that's dropping the dollar altogether and just basically using the Chinese yuan as a means of mechanism for global payment.
Right.
Well, let me. I missed what you said for a second, Mike. I had a call coming through. You said that before I had gotten cut off there for a second. Can you repeat kind of what you had said just a minute ago?
Well, I know and myself had covered that on this hangout that Turkey, Iran, and Russia are looking at dropping the dollar as a means to get around sanctions.
Yep.
So all three of these countries are dealing with sanctions, and they're also looking at cryptocurrencies as an alternative, right? So you know, you have something like a crypto lira, a crypto ruble, and the Iran has been talking about using the Chinese yuan as a alternative to the dollar, you know, for a global payment system.
Aren't they already working with the petro yuan? Aren't they? Don't they already have something on board with that?
Yeah, but that's not typically what Iran was using, but that's what China calls it, right? So
right. Okay. Yeah.
But when you take into consideration that China has been embracing the blockchain and what do you call it, alternative payment, digital currency for that matter, they're already armed to the teeth right now in terms of supercomputers, processing power, satellite communication, quantum satellite communication already in place.
That's right.
They're already set up infrastructure-wise to drop the dollar, but they're not going to drop the dollar as long as it's strong. It works to their advantage.
Yep.
So what they're thinking about doing right now is just basically peeling back the rest of the countries away from, you know, the United States being dependent upon the dollar.
But sure.
We covered tonight that that the United States, John Bolton, wants to threaten everybody who's doing business with the ICC. Because
this fool dude,
he
talked as if it was completely irrelevant. Did you hear his speech?
Yeah.
What did you think?
Who are you talking about, Trump?
No.
John Bolton.
Oh,
what did you think about that, Mike?
Okay, both. Are you talking about the Turkish stuff, right? That you talking about?
No. That's Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But what John Bolton works under Trump.
Bolton. Bolton. Okay.
Yeah, Bolton.
Oh yeah, you talking about in the Trump? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just got cut off for a second. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, he's downplaying it as if, Israel's security is a prominent is a priority. You know, and we'll do anything to preserve it. And basically, anybody who tries to take Israel or us to court, to the ICC, will face serious consequences, and basically you're threatening people for taking legal action against you. Now that's hostile. We discussed earlier that a lot of these U.S. police officers that go around shooting black men could actually be brought to court on charges of crimes against humanity, because it's extrajudicial killing black men on camera that are going uncharged. And
it's a violation of human rights.
Well, yeah, you guys do know that Amnesty International, the group, has actually spoke out on this.
Yep.
In fact, he spoke out on these police killings. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. They have looked at these as crimes against humanity. They have looked at that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's a crime against humanity. Yep.
They have looked at that, and there's been a lot of killings in this country by the police, and they look at this police as a de facto kind of United States police forces as a de facto kind of criminal type of organizations.
Yeah, but if you're with what Mike's talking about, if you're like Bolton, you're basically saying you're rendering the international criminal courts as, I mean, he basically just kind of was like, they're nobody.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, what international body of legal adjudication are you adhering to then?
And who he's basically saying is, who are we duty bound to fucking respect?
That's okay. In other words,
we're gonna do what we want. I mean, that's in essence what he's saying.
Yeah. In other words,
there's no prosecutorial
yeah,
to really get them. I mean, you could try to throw these guys in the Hague. I mean, it's just like they talk about how Cheney and these guys don't want to travel around the world because they think that.
Well, no.
The reason why they government and charged.
Well, I was going to say the reason why they don't is because the ICC actually found them guilty of war crimes. That's why they don't. That's why they don't travel to certain countries because as soon as they touch down, guess who's going to be there? Some Interpol agents.
Yes, and they can grab.
Well, not just Interpol, but you have other countries willing to turn them in.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. These guys got prices on their fucking heads. They got bounties on their heads.
These bounties.
That's why Sarkozy. Yeah, that's why Sarkozy and on Hollande, Francis Hollande, is the former president of France.
France.
You know, they have to stay away from Haiti. They have to, because last time I think Hollande went to France. You know, the Haitians were throwing tomatoes at him, telling him, "You better get out of here because you're not wanted here. You're not welcome here." And he had to hot-tail it out of there really fast.
And they made them stop because people don't really understand what impoverished Haiti was the I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you guys are aware, maybe you are, that Haiti had to pay reparations to France for the revolution, and they were paying that shit for fucking for damn near centuries, and the Haitians like, we ain't paying this shit anymore. That's what ultimately kept them as an impoverished country. I don't know why Haiti ever agreed. Well, I was
going to say, you considering who says, oh, yeah, well, you know what? Because you revolted, you owe, and you agreed to pay it. Like, we ought to give you an extra ass kicking. That really should have been what the response should have been, but
Well, the European powers, we're all going to come together on this one and try to deal. But that's kind of. But they de facto isolated them from a business perspective. I mean, Haiti should be the gay Paris of the Caribbean, but that's not what it is.
That's not what it is. No.
They froze them out out of the Western Economic Union. They were frozen out for that. Basically.
And there was actually a case that the Haitians had brought to court, to international court, to basically get their just due, and they were owed $25 billion by France. And
that's true.
Yep, that's right.
France reneged on that, so France still owes them. 10 years later. I think this was in 2003, 2000.
That was recent, man. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
So
meanwhile,
Haiti would actually be.
No. You're absolutely right about that. And then that also but all that freed Haiti up. I mean, freed France up to do a lot of the shit that they pulled, and in that last. I'm sorry, but that last move that went down in Libya to keep the French alive, that shit was an obscenity, bro. I'm sorry, and I unfortunately I gotta hold Obama very responsible for that as well. That was terrible, but that also gave reason for the Chinese and the Russians to really start to take hold in Africa now. That's why I say there's gonna. It might be a good time for us to get in there, but things I think are going to get tight back on the continent again after a period. I think when America decides they want to try to flex more muscles there as well, it's going to be interesting to see.
Cool.
I don't know how you guys. What do you think, Mike?
Well, what I'm thinking here is that we saw that Macron, who's the president of France, fly to China, to Beijing, to actually have talks with Xi Jinping, which is the president of China,
right?
And discuss, what do they call it? The international, the World Trade Organization, as well as the conditions of Africa, the capitalism in Africa that France, is dependent upon to keep their country alive. And as it stands, China is encroaching on these territories, and I believe that it's China behind the the uprising in Cameroon for the English-speaking Cameroonians.
Absolutely.
Trying to break.
Of course.
Absolutely. Good point. Really, really good point.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many videos,
really
and
good.
I've been meaning to share with
Really
regards
good.
to that, man, because CGNT, I think that's the network on YouTube. Man, they've been
China Global Television Network.
Yeah, they've been posting so much stuff, and I don't want to flood everybody's inbox, but man, it just to kind of speak to what Mike was just saying. Oh, absolutely, because I've been seeing a lot of the news clips coming through the feed that speak to what he just said.
Yeah, Mike's dead on.
And now you have
that's a kind
now you have Russia in the Central African Republic.
That's right.
Putting the military base right in there.
Yep.
That's right. And like I said, I was talking to Ghana Dan, and he was saying how he was talking to some Russian guys. He was delivering some stuff for them, and and he heard they knew that he was doing business in Ghana. And they gave him they dropped a few extra $100 on him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They did. So what I'm seeing is America. The American hegemony is right now. It's going to be challenged by some rather big muscular rivals that's going to be played out in some key areas, and it's going to be interesting to see how this goes down. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes down. If it gets hot, it's going to be bad. But I think the Chinese and the Russians are looking not to get into armed conflict. I think just by the fact of their presence and a lot of their power.
To speak to what Mike has been saying, I don't think that they're really what would be the point at this point? You know what I mean? You're gonna have your aggressions, sure. When has there never not been aggressions? But at this particular point, we're talking about a little bit of a war of attrition in terms of trade. There was something that came through the feed. I needed to follow up on it about another $60 billion in tariffs that China is going to slap on the U.S.
Well, that's a response to the shit.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing, man. With China, we've discussed this on previous hangouts. See, their tariff responses are more targeted. They're far more targeted, and they have more impact when they levy them versus when we levy it on their end. Like there's an effect. There's an effect. Let's be real here. There's an effect, but you see here, no, they have it dialed in to where it's going to hit key supporting demographics of the current administration. It's going to hit those key industries. It's going to hit all of they did it with Ohio, Minnesota, Iowa, with all the soybean farmers and the pork producers and all. They target their shit. So every time that they levy a tariff, it's hyper focused and it's targeted. It has a financial impact, has an economic impact. It also has a political impact.
Yeah, but one of the things is, what China's able to do, since we do business with so many other countries that do business with China, they got relationships with China where wherever we try to levy anything heavily against them, they just go to their proxy country and backdoor all of their shit and place it into Singapore or whatever. They bang and they ship that stuff in here, and they're still getting their shit in. They're still involved in our markets, even though we're targeting them, but we don't have that same kind of leverage on the other side to pull that with them as well. So that's where I think some of the issues are.
This is why I say that sometimes it's like resistance is futile, as they say.
Yeah. And plus I'm gonna generally say this: when you do, you got to be kind of smart on what you're doing. See, that's when people say, well, I think, Trump is really smart. This guy's a bit of a fucking moron. He's a moron. He doesn't understand how this shit really fucking works. And they're running circles around him, and he's hurting businesses. I mean, this whole tariff trade, this whole trade balance war is fucking up Europe, fucking up our friends. And it's just, you know, I would be. I mean, it's just these guys are just. These guys are not that bright, man.
Well, look, there's two ways. Okay, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that I would say that United States is actually is stiff arming China at this point with the tariffs as well, because there's a lot of factories in China that has been closing down and laying off.
They've been hurting them. They've been hitting them a little bit. You know.
Yeah, they've been hurting them pretty good. There's been discussion about shifting some of those resources into Africa. You know.
Well, I was going to say and into Europe. And into Europe, because now China is so. This is what I'm saying. I mean, it's like if our economic advisors and policy wonks, right? If they had just like the slightest hint or clue or thought, right, they'd be thinking beyond 5 years, right, or beyond the tenure of the current administration. And much like China, what they do is they'd be banking on, say, like the next 10, 15, 20 years, say, perhaps. Okay, so with regards to something like this, okay, U.S. levies tariffs on China, and what happens is that German companies get hit, right? Because German branded vehicles that are being imported into China get slapped with tariffs, so the Germans get hit with it. So then the Chinese say, okay, well, how about we just go ahead and how about we do this? How about we just do something directly with you? We'll go ahead and we'll invest $2 billion in battery manufacturing plants, right? The investment will come through us. It'll have the BMW name on it. And let's figure out a way to work around these guys. And that's exactly what ends up happening, right? So I guess on paper, there is some effect because, yeah, a factory or two does get shut down. But then what happens is that the factory ends up opening up over in Germany. And what happens here is that now we're looking at a long-term economic impact. See, in 20 years, the U.S. will feel that shit. China can stomach it. Like I said, it's not as if like what's going on here doesn't take any sort of effect there. We've spoken to this on previous hangouts where some of the shit Noah and I import has increased in price to the tune of $205 a unit. We see it,
and that's having a tremendous effect on you know, in certain aspects of American business.
Yeah, you know, so we see it, but I mean, shit. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that the businesses that China is targeting are all in red states.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When they slap those tariffs, they hit the red states, man.
Yeah. And you know what that means? More.
I said their retaliation tactics, dude. Their retaliation tactics on the tariff end are hyper focused. That's the first thing, and then the second thing is the workaround component that they do, right, to ensure long-term advantage on their end. Once the dust settles, they win. When the dust settles, they win. That's what I mean. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? You want to slap a tariff now? You think that's going to help you out here in the next couple of years while you try to bring a few more factories online to ramp up your production, to do all this so that you can get competitive? Dude, you're so far behind the ball, and you think that's actually a viable plan? Please, you're going to try to ramp up to try to compete with somebody who's already at full steam, who actually has to, they're such a full steam that they could actually crank the lever down a little bit. They're creating a lot of excess. There's a lot left over from what they're already doing. They're running surpluses. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, now you see Apple is being affected by this as well. The price of the new iPhone is outrageous.
Really?
It's just outrageous.
Look at this.
And they're $1,200, $1,300.
It's not. This ain't working. This trade war ain't working.
It's not working in our favor, and
it's not working.
And that's why I'm saying they they kind of got a leg up on us.
I'm saying you're damn right they do.
And a lot of people and our media. I know how our media is playing it because they want to dumb it down, and you're dealing with the average American who's an ignorant, non-reading fucker. but but people know that they're slightly getting screwed somewhere. And
can anyone on this panel here justify a $1,300 Apple phone?
Man, listen. You know what kills me? Samsung makes the screens,
bruh, for
all of these phones, and they sell them to Apple. And Apple is trying to tell you to buy my fucking iPhone for even more money. Don't
sell me on the software. Don't sell me on the software
and all that. I mean, the iPhone. When you're talking about $1,300 to buy that shit, you are out of your fucking mind. You're insane. You're insane. That's insanity.
Well, they have these payment plans set up. You know, you put $500 down and then you pay the rest off. You know, in some other form of fashion.
Man, that shit.
Mike, you make this sound like it's a car. You make this sound like it's the Apple car.
That's not its own shit.
Well, now you know why Apple can't come out with the car. It's going to be the battery technology coming out of China is going to be right through the roof, and it won't be affordable. You be buying an Apple car for $100,000.
So wait, are you telling me that Apple might be prime for a buyout at some point here in the future by some EV automaker, or at least some sort of joint venture type of something rather?
I personally don't see Apple getting involved in cars, but I see them getting involved in drones. So what I foresee happening is that they'll leverage some form of drone technology as their new vehicle. It has to hover. It can't be a car. Four wheels is yesterday. Mm-hmm. They're thinking about the next 100 years from now. So they're trying to go into something that's going to be future-proof. I think that drones
what kills me is we already have hovercraft. We already have jetpacks. We already have hover cars. All this shit has already been designed and can go to market any day. And we've been holding this shit back for 20, 30 fucking years. I remember the jetpack. I don't know if you guys remember the man from Glad. I'm kind of dating myself, but there used to be a commercial with the Glad man. He'd be flying around on this jetpack, and it was a 1960s commercial. That shit was ready to go fucking damn near 50 years ago. We are running around with technologies that are archaic. We have stuff that's in the boxes right now or on the shelves that basically would put us 100 years ahead of time that we already have right now, and we're not using. I mean, we have we could be 100 years in the future in 10 years if we want to have all the stuff out right now if we want it. Flying cars, flying personal jetpacks and stuff where you could fly around and land and your own little flying vehicle, that we could put on your back and literally fly you across town, in the air, no problem, And now with battery operated stuff, you could use a power pack battery or whatever without having to use a whole lot of gasoline, all that kind of stuff. So you have all this kind of shit going on right now. Hover cars that you can get in right now and get up, rise off the ground and fly around in those like small little copters. You drive, you can have those right now. All that shit is now.
Well, look, we also covered the Black Fly, the flying car.
Yeah, the flying car. I mean, I remember the guy who had patented this thing. This was years ago, and he, an insurance company said he had to have this flying car on some kind of tether line because they wouldn't insure him if he didn't have it, and he was bringing it to market, and he had a hover car that looked very much like a car, but had like these these airfoils, that were like propellers, like underneath the hood and underneath the vehicle, and this thing flew beautifully. Flew wonderfully, and they haven't bought it out. You haven't seen it.
Well, keep in mind that
Go ahead.
Keep in mind that the military has been using vertical takeoff on their
jets.
Their fighter jets since the 70s. I think the Russians were the masters of it with the Yak 121 or the Yak 114 or something like that. The Russians came out with that in 1977. And I think the Americans had stole the technology from them and put it on their planes.
Yep. So you have planes that can just take right off and just go. You have all this technology now where you have because then of course about the this famous secret that they have out, the Aurora, which is a delta wing, a plane that flies supersonic. I mean, when I say supersonic, I think it's 8 times the speed of sound or something like that right now. It's and it fires. It flies with it gives off like a like a wave pulse to where it almost flies silently, but it flies at these ridiculous speeds. And I think we have that in operation now, and no one's
Where you
talking
said
about
the pulse jet? The pulse jet?
Yeah, it sends out a certain type of pulse. I'm trying to remember the name of the pulse that it sends out. Why am I
That
forgetting
thing flies at like 5,000 miles an hour or something, some crazy speed, hypersonic, right? Supersonic or something.
EM pulse.
EM pulse. That's it. Yep.
EM pulse, and it flies at it's something like 8 times the speed of sound. So
it's something crazy.
It will 760 something miles an hour speed of sound in the air. So 8 times 7. That's for sure.
About 5,000 miles an hour, something like that.
Yeah. So it's traveling at these ridiculous speeds.
Mm-hmm.
That's right now, and people have forgotten that we had the X jet. We had this X jet fighter that was back in 1953. I think that moved at Mach 4, Mach 5 back then. So this was in the 50s. So so we got shit out here now that no one's talking about, and this Aurora is out. I think it's out there, and it's it's some ill shit, and it was almost like the SR-71 when we found out about that. By the time we knew about that in the 80s, it was already getting ready to be obsolete. They were retiring it, so I think they were retiring it for this Aurora that no one knows about, supposedly. But Mike, have you heard about the Aurora as well?
Yes, I have, and some of these devices, some of these planes that they've developed, it hasn't always been 100% solid. So there's been deaths behind some of these projects.
Always. That's part. That's why your what do you call your experimental pilots? They a lot of them get killed. Yeah, a lot of these they know they're like astronauts. They're like, if you go up in this plane and something goes wrong, there's a good chance you may get killed. There's 50% chance, and they walking in on the deal. So
and it's classified, so you don't know how many.
That's right. You have no idea. None. No idea. But so if we're doing that, but then again, the Chinese were able to shoot down one of our one of our stealth fighters, right? Chinese, or one was shot down in Bosnia.
It shot down the F-114 Nighthawk.
Yeah. I think it's the 117s. I think it's the 117As.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Shot that sucker down. It wasn't supposed to be.
It's actually the Russians that did it.
Yeah. They Russians. Well, the Bosnians did it, but apparently they had the Russian technology. The Russians had the technology to shoot it down, so they got it from them. But yeah. De facto, yeah, no question about it. The Russians did do that. That's correct. So that's bad. So it's sure let you know this is the Cold War, and in the battle for who's going to have the upper hand in technology is on. I think it's on more savage now than ever. It's always been a vicious fight, but I think this is a real vicious one right now.
I don't foresee America making out of this one. At least not as clean. Because we discussed this last week on our hangout. I know myself that there's a new Atlantic fleet being developed right now as we speak to counter any sort of aggressions in the Atlantic Ocean. They're banking on that. They're banking on that the final showdown will be in the Atlantic and it won't be in the Pacific. They'll give up the Pacific in order to preserve the Atlantic.
You see, this is one of the things that people don't want to talk about. I mean, we may have the air war and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, man, you still got to deal with that, um, with that ocean, that sub war, man. That's where the shit's at. You know, that's
That's what we were just talking about earlier.
You got more water on the. If you were to really look at the planet from a distance, you wouldn't call this shit Earth. You'd call it fucking sea and shit. Because, I mean, there's nothing but big, giant seas. So you got these subs cruising around that are armed with tremendous destructive power. And how the fuck are you going to deal with that? The underwater game. That's what people are not really looking at. That sub game.
That's what Lionel and myself was covering tonight. That the final piece was that Russia is developing or has developed a submarine that is supposed to be the longest, the fastest, the most technologically advanced, has less sailors on board. So instead of having 100 sailors, it only has about 36, to my knowledge, and it doesn't need to come above surface almost at all, to collect data. They also are working on another submarine that has tanks on board that can actually offload tanks onto from a landing position, and basically, if they wanted to invade Florida, they can take over Miami just with one submarine.
See, that's what the whole. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember the Tom Clancy book and this famous movie, The Hunt for the Red October, and that's what that was all about. That's what that was all about. Developing a whole new sub technology where they had a caterpillar drive that operated very much like a jet engine underwater, and it moved silently, didn't give a significant radar signature, and it could park all types of nuclear ordnance, off of any major city, off of any coast, anywhere in the United States. It could just roll up and just knock your ass out the box. You would never even know what hit you. So that's what they were talking about then. Tom Clancy, who had a lot of great military inside information, and wrote a book on that. And I read the book and I saw the movie. I thought the book was a little bit better, but the movie was pretty good as well. But they were talking about that. That's what they would get deeply into that. In fact, the sub game, the underwater, ocean game, and it's so hard to find. If you guys are going to travel around the Marianas Trench and these kind of areas where you're 6-7 miles down underwater, who's going to fucking find you? Who, you can run, who's going to find your ass? Who's going to find your ass down there, man? You know what I mean? 7 miles, 8 miles, 7 miles down. Who's finding you down there, dude? 35, 40,000 feet deep. I mean, it's crazy. So, they can go underneath, go real deep, and come up out of nowhere. They can disappear. I don't care what radar technology you have or whatever. I don't know if we are up to, tracking all of this. So that's where the real war is going to be, and nobody talks about it, but I think that's the real game. You guys were talking about that last week, Mike. You were talking about the Russians.
No,
so
we were
far?
talking about that tonight.
We were talking about tonight.
No, we were talking about that tonight.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Just before you came on, we were having a long discussion. That was our final piece. So Russia has something called the Yasm. I think that's what they call it, Lino.
Yasm destroyer.
Yeah, it's a high tech submarine that is outperforming everything on the market. It's longer, it's faster, more missile capacity, torpedo capacity. These torpedoes are longer than anything Lionel has saw before, or that he's seen in the past. The range is almost longer than anything that the Americans have.
Oh man, I mean, like I said, Tom Clancy was talking about this almost 30 years ago, 20 years ago, at least 20, 25 years ago. He was talking about this. So, you guys saw the movie Hunt for the Red October, right?
Yeah, with Sean Connery.
Yeah. You guys saw that. Yeah, read the book. It's really off the chain. But
That was like it came out in like 1984. That was Patrick Swayze, right?
It came out in the 90s, didn't it?
no.
No, the remake came out. The original came out in like 84.
Okay.
Original what?
Wait, no. I'm thinking of Red Dawn. My bad.
No, you're talking about Red Dawn, man. No. Hunt for the Red
Yeah, I'm
October.
thinking Red Dawn. Yeah, Hunt for Red October.
That was a specific
That was what?
book. Alec Baldwin.
When did that one come out? Hunt for Red
book?
October. That was
The Hunt for,
no, the movie. The movie.
And the movie came out, I think, in 94, 95.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh.
Great movie. Great movie class. Because I had read the book.
Yeah.
I read that book and it was so damn good. I think I read the book maybe in a day. It was a day or whatever. I couldn't put the son of a bitch down. But anyway, it was a great one. But they were talking exactly about the sub technology, sub war, the sub wars, and how tactics and so forth, and just how deadly these things. Nobody talks. Everyone talks about aircraft and ground troops and all that, but no one talks about delivering ordnance, nuclear ordnance, by way of the sea. That is so vast and so big. You almost cannot track anyone on this. You can't.
Well,
I don't think the Russians can track us, and we can't really track them as successfully as we would like to think we could. But anyway, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that's what we were discussing earlier. That Putin even put out a declaration that Russia has a submarine in the form of a torpedo that basically can go undetected for a couple of years, and it's nuclear powered and can explode on your shoreline, and you wouldn't be able to detect it.
That's what the Hunt for the Red October was all about.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about that 25 years ago, and they were not playing. That's where you're at with this. Tough business. So I would hope that Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the Chinese have been talking about using cargo ships or not cargo ships, but fishing trolleys as delivery vehicles for a nuclear attack. You take a Chinese fishing trolley and you ram that sucker up against a U.S. aircraft carrier, that'll destroy the whole entire fleet.
I mean, isn't it always so funny how there's always some sort of fishing boat that keeps running into U.S. naval ships?
Well, you saw that attack that they were saying the Al Qaeda or whatever on that USS. What was the name of that ship that was attacked? And they blew a damn hole in the side.
USS Cole.
Yeah, the USS Cole.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what they did. They sailed a ship, a small little, like fishing boat, rolled it right up to the side and blew a cavernous hole in the side of it. So yeah, I mean, and those are effective. Those are, effectively just another type of torpedo. That's what it is—a human-controlled, torpedo. So that's how that's going down. But yeah, that's where we're at in this. That's why I say, if we are going to look to engage in this kind of thing, I don't know, man. I don't know if that juice is worth the squeeze. If we were looking to do that today, I would hope that we wouldn't. And like you said, the Chinese and the Russians and so forth look like they're, they've got a lot of knowledge here. So I don't know if it'll be that easy for us.
Well, I mean, one way to look at it too is let's take, for example, one of the iconic American brands, Harley Davidson, right?
Right.
And we look at how Trump, basically says, he browbeats, Harley, and says, you know what, that's a bad thing that you guys are going to be moving some of your production. You're going to move your production offshore in order to save a buck or two here or there, right? Instead of keeping the jobs here in America and all this shit, right?
Right.
There's something to be said about when your industrial base has a globalized view of its own future, right? That actually runs counter to your near-term jingoistic, campaign-driven, led promises to the people and all this shit. Like at a certain point, look, the bean counters in the room are going to get pragmatic, and they're going to be like, okay, time out. I get it. We're Harley Davidson. We're an American company. Blase Skippy, all that shit. Check this here out. We have sales that are dipping here in the United States because we have a large millennial demographic that's following this boomer group and this Gen X group has already bought the Harleys that they're going to buy largely.
Yep.
And then there's a huge used market out here. Meanwhile, countries like Denmark and Germany and Italy, a lot of those people want a piece of Americana, right? So there's emerging markets elsewhere, declining markets here, emerging markets elsewhere. We got to think intelligently about our company's future, right? And I'm saying, and it's at that point where you turn around and you say, Trump, you know what, dude, fuck off, okay? You're really screwing the pooch. You're screwing the pooch for us. And so what I'm saying is that when this starts to hit more of your American-based, right, made in America companies, however, American companies also have lines of business elsewhere, and you're not taking this type of shit into account. Now, look, what I'm trying to find where the incentive to really engage in aggressions on the level that you're talking about. When on the trade side of things, your companies have largely pivoted against you and say, well, fuck it, dude, I got to go ahead and strike our own deals with Germany and all this stuff because we can't back you. We can't even back our own country. You're telling us, screw us. When if you want us to remain competitive, we have to position ourselves in a way to remain. It's not. That's what I'm saying. It's like this shit it's not that simple anymore.
Hey man, that's why you have the fact of what's going on in Europe. These guys saying we cannot really cut ties and stop dealing with Iran because you guys want us because we got a lot of dollars side and we got
exactly.
We can't do that. So that's part of the problem with some of the stuff that we're trying to pull over here right now. That's not going to jive well with even our own allies economically. You start lightening people's, not just individuals, but you start lightening countries' pockets. And lightning, because they got a lot of business going on, you're gonna have some problems.
There's gonna be some
issues.
That's what we covered. We covered an article about a week or so ago about the European Union commissioner basically saying that they have to come up with an alternative banking system to avoid sanctions dealing with the United States because Trump wants to put sanctions on companies now, not just individuals.
Yep.
So he's talking about going after,
wow.
Siemens, Total, Peugeot, Daimler, Mercedes.
Those aren't small
BMW.
Companies. Those are not small companies.
Siemens,
those are not small companies.
Siemens Corporation, they're massive, bro. Massive. Fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the fucking GDP, man, of fucking Europe.
Those are not small companies. What are you trying to do?
Those are major.
Siemens is
what are you seriously trying to do?
Say it again,
Mike. I was just saying that Siemens is the German or the European equivalent of GE of America. So
yes.
Yeah, man, Siemens is huge, man. Siemens is huge. Huge technical company, huge tech.
All the electrical automotive components for a lot of the German automotive manufacturers and stuff.
That's right.
They're like Delphi.
Yep. Mm-hmm. No. Siemens.
So
we're
but larger.
Yeah, Siemens.
We're running out of time on this hangout, and we should probably just take some offline.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Lionel,
you want to close us out, bro?
Lionel?
Uh-oh.
Lionel, where you at? Uh-oh, the white man got him. White man got him. White man got his foot on his neck. All right. Yo, Lionel.
What's up?
You ready to close out?
Yeah. Anything else?
No, man, we good. We good.
All right. Thank you all for stopping by for Geopolitics Wednesday. Don't forget
Hold on 1 second. Hey, Devin, we're gonna be closing out here because we're hitting our time limit. But yeah, we're going offline, man. Shoot us your email, man, if you want to join us.
Excuse me. Don't forget to come back Friday. Friday is Economics Friday. Good show topics there. Learn a handful of good things on our Economic Show Friday. Is he going to drop the email?
Yeah. Lionel, can you drop your email in the chat?
Is he?
I mean, if he's going to join in, so he can shoot. We can send him a.
Yeah, just
join in.
Yeah. If he can drop his email in the chat, then I'll send a link.
Yeah, Devin, if you want to join in, man, drop your email in the chat.
Before we go off air, because we are about to go off air now. Excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, Lionel, go ahead and close this out, man.
All right, then. Thank y'all for watching. Come back Friday. Talk to you later.
All right. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.